is S.J. Thomason, Christian-apologist.com. I want to say I'm really excited today. I'm going to be doing a coffee talk with none other than the famous G-Man, who's a Christian who's been in the YouTube community for quite a long time, making a big splash out there to the point where Ethan, who is also here, who's your friendly neighborhood atheist, has recognized G-Man and he wanted to come in here and get to meet him. And so we're going to have a really nice conversation. So the whole idea is two Christians and an atheist walked into a bar. And we'll just open it up. It's going to be a little wild. So, and we will take questions and all that kind of good stuff. If any of you guys have questions, you want to ask any of us, it could be ask a Christian, ask an atheist, any of that sort of thing. So we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over first to G-Man because he's the first one who joined, and then to Ethan. And if you guys want to just talk a little bit about what where you're coming from. I know you're both from the United States, and what how you came to your belief system. If you want to give a real brief, quick story on that, and maybe just a little bit about yourselves other than that, if there's anything else you want to share. And of course, I'm going to link the channels, your channels, for sure. Ethan, I don't think I have yours in there yet. If I haven't already made it automatic where it shows up, I will do that. And so that'll be very soon. So without further ado, let me go to G-Man.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is G-Man. I have a channel called G-Man, or Preaching to the Choir Ministries. And on my YouTube channel, I do a lot of Christian apologetics. I've gotten kind of popular on YouTube because I spend a lot of time talking about atheists. At one point, I was the most outspoken person against atheism on YouTube. Since then, I've been talking about the Hebrew Israelites. I do documentaries. I rap on here every now and then. I do a lot of interesting things on this show. I've been on The Drunken Peasants. I've called the Atheist Experience. And I thoroughly enjoy debating the atheist community when they're serious. I have another channel called GTV, in which I deal with the sciences of atheists and some of the other arguments that they do. But for the most part, I'm more of an apologist that's interested in, refuting what I would believe to be false teachings that would cause a person to fall away from the faith. So you can find me by typing in XX0054 on YouTube or type in G-Man. But the fastest way is to type in XX0054 if you want to find me on YouTube.
Oh, that was clever. That's an easy way to remember you.
Mm-hmm.
So good. I also want to say hi to people in the chat. I know that I see Nathan. Nathan, I think we might be pretty good as far as that, because we already actually extended an invitation to Puck and Vekl, so we might have a pretty full house in here in a little bit. But anyway, so let me go to Ethan.
By the way, hi everyone in the comments. Cindy Plaza, Christian, Kenneth, Puck. If you're interested, you heard the invite. You're welcome to jump on. I am Ethan Michael, your friendly neighborhood atheist. You can catch me on youtube.com/YFNatheist. Typically, I try and take a more friendly approach. I like to avoid those more complex philosophical breakdowns in favor of just having a regular conversation, because in many times, in my opinion, when you overcomplicate things, you lose the audience. The average viewer can't follow you. I want to attract those average viewers. I want them to actually be interested in religion and politics and not have them just turn it off because they heard something they don't understand. I don't know. I'm a friendly dude. I am here to talk religion, and I take religion and politics seriously, but I am also here to have a good time. And in my opinion, show people a better way to have these conversations. And G-Man, so you're a rapper. I did not know that. I have been known to rap myself. So maybe you and I sometime can do something together. Because for instance, I have video footage of me rapping on stage with Vanilla Ice. So that was—
Are you serious?
I swear. He challenged anyone in the audience. It was towards the end of his concert. He's like, now, if anyone out there, they talk about freestyling, now's your chance. Come up. And my buddy shoved me. So I went on stage and freestyled with Vanilla Ice. And it was one of the coolest things ever.
I'd love to see that. That would be interesting.
That would be hilarious. Yes, I haven't seen him in so long. So actually, I saw him. Wasn't he doing some house building sort of show? Or am I confusing him with somebody else?
Oh, yeah. He moved on to that. Like, he was buying and reselling homes. But, yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yeah, yeah. That's. Oh, I would like to see you two rap. And actually, I know G-Man's a rapper because one time I got onto G-Man's channel and he apparently wasn't paying attention to the camera. I called in it. It was in the days when we automatically connected in, so I automatically connected in, and G-Man's going boop boop boop. He was like,
Yeah.
he looks at me like ah.
I started a trend here on YouTube about 6 years ago, when I decided to find 7 years ago, where I decided to take a more creative approach on debating atheists on here on the internet. There was this atheist on here by the name of Eve Real, who just deconverted over to atheism, and I challenged her to a rap battle because she kept saying that she could spit like she could rap. So the first rap I lost. I'm just gonna just call it for what it was. The first rap I did with her, I lost. I believe I won the second one. The third one's up for a debate, but it got the community interested. You know what I mean? People were saying this could be a trend. It'd get people talking and get us to laugh at each other a little bit and bring it down a couple of RPMs. You know what I mean? And then I've been doing it ever since. And I'm not a rapper, but I do it to express myself a lot of times on here, so to speak.
Well, it's an artistic expression, I'd say. So that's all good.
Yeah, but there are far better rappers than me. I can promise you that.
So what I wanted to ask you guys, here's what I think could be kind of interesting, is just talking about your experiences on YouTube and on social media. I know Ethan's on social media, on Twitter. I've seen him there. And I don't know if any of you are using Instagram or any of these other sort of platforms, or TikTok or Facebook or anything else. But I'm wondering what your experiences have been, if you kind of had to put them in a nutshell, over the past. For you, Ethan, it's a short period of time, and for G-Man, it's a long period of time, of what's your perceptions of the way people have perceived you as either a Christian or an atheist? And also, what are your perceptions of the other tribe?
G-Man, did you want to go first, or would you like?
No, you go ahead.
So it's been a wild, fun, and awesome ride. Like, just the idea that 3 months ago, nobody knew who I was. And now I've already spoken to Jenna Belk regularly, Vila Bianca regularly. I'm talking to Dragnot next week. Like, this is mind blowing. Like, these people didn't know who I was, and now I get to talk to them. So coolest thing ever. Very exciting. Also really exciting that I would seem that I have a lot of Christians who watch my channel, ask to be on, and invite me on their channel. Like, I take that as a huge compliment. The fact that people want to engage with me regularly or enjoy what I'm doing, like that, to me is one of the best feelings ever, because I really am just the average dude. I have no formal schooling. I'm not an expert on the Bible or religion. So it's nice knowing I have this kind of support. However, I have noticed, in my opinion, a big problem on both sides. There's like this missing bridge between the two communities, and they're just like almost like throwing stuff at each other, but nothing's really landing. There's just this, and there needs to be a bridge built so we can actually start having these conversations more effectively, and not just sitting here and calling each other intellectually dishonest every 5 minutes, or just yelling at each other. Like, to me, that's not going to do anything. And I would much rather find a way to meet someone on their ground, or meet them halfway, find a place so we can engage in healthy dialogue, and then move forward. However, I have seen, I've had some atheists at this point refuse to talk with me, or refuse to come on my channel. And although some of them seem to have changed their mind, there is still two in particular that it's if you do this, I can't support you, or if you talk to this person, I can't support you. And it's like, we're not in high school, people. How about we just talk to each other and stop just throwing everyone aside, just because we don't agree with them, not accepting not accepting their opinion, or trying to engage with them in a responsible way. So I've seen crap on both sides I don't like, but I've seen a lot of great on both sides, which I do like.
Yeah, I think that seems fair. And I'm surprised that atheists already, I mean, you've only been around here for a few months. I've never seen you say anything toxic to really anyone. You're basically sort of like, what are they called? Chocolate chip cookies or something like that. You're sugar cookies. You're nice to people. And so I'm surprised that some of them are already scared off for whatever reason.
I had one block me the other day, and another one say he's done with me for engaging with I forgot the term he used, and I don't even know if I want to necessarily use it.
Creatard? A creatard?
No, not that. But it's just the way some of them talk about the religious community is really disturbing. Like, I mean, it's no secret that SJ and G-Man, we're not on the same page at all. But I'm not going to sit here and walk around and, you know, throw insults at you or talk smack about you to other people. Like, I don't agree with that, and just insulting someone because they have a different belief than you is just a crappy thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. It's and yeah, we've seen it, and I've seen it too. I'll tell you guys, just in case people are in here that haven't heard my sort of part of the story, is someone just commented that both G-Man and I did a hilarious job on the Atheist Experience. I think G-Man did very well, but to speak to my debut on the Atheist Experience was pretty awful, and unfortunately the video's gone viral, and I said some silly stuff on it. I had a chip on my shoulder. I could take it back if I would. I would take it back, but anyway, we all live and learn. We make mistakes, and that shouldn't have been my debut in the atheist community for the first time people to hear my voice, but unfortunately it was. And so that was 3 years ago, and that's it. That's pretty much my part of the story. But we reviewed G-Man's and mine actually before, and I thought G-Man, he's been in there a few times, and I thought he did pretty well. So I would actually say in his case, he didn't say, yes, I'm wasting your time. That was how I ended my conversation with.
I don't. That was kind of funny what you said at the end, but I think you did pretty good with your conversation with him. The problem is when we call the Atheist Experience, and as everybody who's watching this probably already knows, you know, you're going up against a friendly neighbor, Atheist Ethan. You might disagree with this, but we're going up against a script. Okay, Matt Delahunt has heard a lot of the things that we said that we already say on here. Okay, and when we go on there, they already know how they're going to respond to certain things that we say. So, you know, the best way to call into the show is to step out of the norm, be okay with saying certain things, you know what I mean, and then stand your ground afterward. And I think if you do that, you'll do just fine if you call the Atheist Experience. It's not as hard as everybody might think it is. It really isn't.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm going to do it again. I decided I don't want to do it again. Because the other thing is, if you do make a mistake and somebody picks it up and it just happens to be that dumb video that goes viral and over 500,000 people have seen it on just one channel alone, let alone the other ones. Yeah.
So, I said a lot of dumb things on here that's got people 100,000 views on here. And you know what? You just got to laugh at yourself sometimes. You know what I mean? Just laugh at yourself. Make sure you don't do it again.
Well, we can't take ourselves too seriously. One thing I did like, actually, I've listened to both of your channels a lot of times, and lately, I should say more G-Man, because I've listened to G-Man. I've known him since we met with the Shannon Q review that he and I did after he went on Shannon Q on Modern Day Debate. But I also have to say that your channels are spicy. They've got a lot of good things going on. I think that both of you are going to get even more popular for pretty good reasons. And I think that if we can just, you know, open it up sometimes to conversations that are friendly, I think that's always a good thing. And so I like that theory. And I can say something as far as when I was telling G-Man about Ethan, because G-Man and Ethan have never met before. I said something like, G-Man, I think I said he's from Chicago, which automatically means you're really nice.
No, that usually doesn't mean you're nice when you're from Chicago.
Unless you're living in you know, some places where you're not so nice. But I mean, there's some people who are having terrible times up there in certain parts, unfortunately, right now. But seems like you have your priorities straight. For example, you won't put ketchup on your hot dogs. I mean, these are some things that are really important to people in Chicago.
Yes, very important. More important than religion, I would argue. I'm kidding. I'm not serious. No, yeah, in Chicago, we take our food very seriously.
You know what's hilarious? I'm just going to bring up something that both of you guys might. Are you guys, obviously you both know Michael Jordan, right?
Oh, of course.
They've been running documentaries on him. I mean, I think you've probably seen it even. They've been running these documentaries on him. So my husband's been binge watching this stuff. And what's funny is I was watching it and I thought, wait a second. I was in Chicago when my grandmother passed away in 1996. And I remember getting off the plane and the whole town was lit up with three-peat because the Bulls were going to run a three-peat. And it was like the second time or third time that they'd done that. And the whole town was going crazy. Do they still go crazy for the Bulls up there?
That's a good question. I doubt it. Right now they're trash.
Yeah.
Are they?
Really overly excited about the Bulls in a long time.
So would you say people have not been excited about the Bulls, or they have been?
At least I haven't heard them talking. Sorry, I haven't heard them excited about the Bulls in quite a long time.
Yeah, they need somebody back like Michael Jordan, actually, I would say.
Yeah, the Bulls are trash right now, and the Knicks are too. I'm a big Knicks fan, so.
Oh, you're a Knicks fan. Okay.
Yeah.
So and you live kind of near New York, right?
Yeah, I'm over here in Jersey.
Yeah. This is all good. So we're all, we have some similarities right now. We're going through some difficult times, obviously, with the pandemic and all of this other stuff going around. How are you guys dealing with that? Are either of you working outside of the house where you have to leave your house and physically encounter people?
So I do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So, fortunately, we do have an office, but I've been able to work from home, which the office is like an hour to an hour and a half away. So it has saved me like 3 hours a day, which has allowed me to pump out all this content across all these channels nonstop. So I'm hoping that I don't have to go back into the office anytime soon. I may have to go here and there, but I would like to keep working from home. So yeah, I do IT during the day. And I will say I'm definitely very lucky because it's allowed me a lot of time to work on content and to meet other people. Like I have, in the short time I've been doing this, I have literally like built this little community, which is the coolest thing ever. Like all these people engaging with me, on my personal Facebook on a daily basis, or reaching out like, hey, did you cover this? Did you do this? It's all new and very exciting. But yeah, I would say right now I'm actually putting more hours into content creation than my actual full-time job.
That's funny. Well, you're using your time efficiently. You're saving 3 hours. You might as well use it the way you want, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's good. How about you, G-Man?
With me personally, I live in one city and I work in another. So my job is not essential. So, I got to, number one, like everybody else, I got to wear one of these. You know what I mean?
Wear the mask? I got mine to put on just for fun.
Well, I don't want to get no corona. No, I mean, like everything's fine with me right now. I'm actually, because of the pandemic, there's a lot of work out there to do right now. So I have my normal job, and then I have some construction projects that I'm doing right now. And then I have some, like, how can I put this? When you got people knocking on your door, hey, you got an hour, I need help spackling this wall, or I need this room painted, it takes like an hour to do it or something like that. You know what I mean? A lot of that is coming up right now. And that's great. So I don't have the same time that I used to have for YouTube, but when I do get the time, I max it out. I got my G podcast that I do things on GTV, and I try to respond to as many things as possible with the time that I have, because when time's up and I have to get away from this computer, then it's just a phone, and then this raggedy phone, messes up my my videos a lot of times. You know how it is,
Yeah.
Doing all right.
So what would you say is the biggest problem for both of you guys? Is actually, before I ask that, I just thought of something that Ethan mentioned that I wanted to get back to. You mentioned a guest that you're going to be interviewing on your channel pretty soon called Dragnut. Did you happen to know that G-Man has this long history with Dragnut, and Dragnut spends almost all of his time reviewing G-Man videos and putting out G-Man stuff?
That I did not know.
Yeah, you're about to engage with one of the biggest massive trolls in our community right now. But have fun with that, because you're going to hear a lot about me, because I dominate the guy's life. But
G-Man has a little rented space in Dragnut's head.
I don't like to, someone to come on and just insult another person who's not there. So I assure you, I wouldn't let the conversation go into a G-Man bashing session, because that's not what I'm looking to do, nor do I think Dragnut would do that. But I don't.
Oh, he will.
Yeah, but Ethan won't let him. That sounds good.
That's good. That's good to hear. But Ethan, let me tell you the difference between you and some of these other atheists in the community. See, a lot of Christians will be willing to talk to you, whether you agree with them or not, because you're willing to have an open dialogue with them and actually have a real conversation where you speak and the other person listens, and vice versa and everything. It's hard to do that with some of these atheists now, because all they want to do is just be heard, and they don't want to hear what the other person has to say. So be prepared for a lot of Christians who want to talk to you. But as far as some of these other people on the internet, nah.
So are you? It sounds like you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, that atheists are refusing to listen to you and engage, but Christians are willing to listen?
What I'm saying is that there are atheists like yourself. It's you. There's another one named Floyd. Another one, Christopher Monty. And by the way, you got to get him on here one day, SJ. I think you'll enjoy talking to him. He's a delight.
Floyd IP, is that the one?
No, yeah, Floyd and Christopher Monty. I think you'll enjoy having him.
Yeah, I'm not
one thing I'll say about Monty doesn't troll, and he, for the most part, knows how to have a good conversation with you about pretty much anything. Shannon Rocky's another one. She's pretty intelligent. You know what I mean? So there are people in this community like yourself, Ethan, that will actually talk to you and have a dialogue and will agree to disagree and things like that. And then there's other people in this community that if you don't agree with them after a while, then they'll troll you into oblivion. That's what I'm saying.
Now, I could say, just to be in all fairness, I could say that as a Christian, I have seen Christians sometimes do that to atheists too. So I have seen the flip. I mean, and I've even seen it as a Christian talking to a Christian with whom I don't agree. So I've had conversations with someone say I have one position and they have another position and they want to kind of duke it out. And I kind of think these internal fights aren't really helpful for the community. So I try to avoid those like anything.
Yeah. It's hard these days to try to get somebody like an Ethan in a room and engage in a serious conversation about something, as opposed to people coming in with agendas and just trying to like make you look as bad as possible, you know. But if you can find somebody like an Ethan or a Monty or Shannon Rocky, I'd jump on the opportunity to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, you'll have to give Ethan or give them the connection to Ethan so they can get a hold of him too, because he might want to also have them. So
I guess, so here would be my question. Let's say one of these atheists is on a particular script, but then this atheist says you're on a particular script as well. So if they both sides believe they're on scripts, how am I to determine which one of you is actually on a script or not?
Change the topic matter. That's how you do it. Say something that people are not used to hearing. If you've heard about me, if you've seen me on the Atheist Experience, and that's what you said earlier, when I talked to Matt Dillahunty, I told Matt Dillahunty pretty much in a nutshell, the man doesn't understand slavery. And I brought it out in a more broader, in a broader way than most Christians when they call him to the show, right? And I talked about how it's not wrong for owning another human being in of itself. That's not something he's used to hearing. It takes him off of his script. If I'm using a script and I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again, say something that other atheists are not using, and it will expose me and force me to think a little bit. You know what I mean? If I'm actually on one.
Okay.
You know, so I hear what you're saying with that because I deal with a lot of people who use scripts. Have you heard of the Hebrew Israelites?
I have not.
You live in Chicago. You never heard of the Hebrew Israelites?
No.
I hadn't really heard of them either until I started looking at YouTube, and actually your channel, G-Man, I saw a lot of them on your channel. I thought, well, who are these people? Just not familiar with them.
Yeah, if you two was walking down the street and I was walking down the street, they'll tell me I'm of the tribe of Judah. And then they'll say that you guys are Edomites and God hates you and your children are going to die, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? And try to say that you're the devil because of how you look. You know
Wait,
what I mean?
who's the Edomite? Like, who's the Edomite?
Well, the black Hebrew Israelites believe that the Edomites, the brother of Esau, is Caucasian people.
Oh, you know, I didn't know that.
Black people are the Israelites. So God loved Jacob, but he hated Esau. And they use this to justify hating people who look different than them. And I expose them on my channel for this. But if you go on the street with them, they say the same thing. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here real quick so that you can see what I'm talking about here. They go out there and they go, my name is Kakakakaya from the ISUPK. And I'm here to tell you blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians that you are the biblical Israelites and that God hates Esau. Open up the Bible. But God loved Jacob and he hated Esau. Who's the so-called Esau? The so-called white man in America. Who brought you over here on slave ships? So-called white man in America. He's the devil in the Bible. You know, and they say this over and over and over and over again. You know what I mean? So to break them out of their script, when you approach them, you ask them certain questions that they're not used to hearing, and it takes them off of it. And that's how you can know if somebody's going by a script or not.
Well, I'd say, G-Man, why don't you have an advantage in talking to them? Because I don't think they would take my words as well as they'll take your words. They'll look at me like, here she comes. Here comes an Edomite, female Edomite. Watch out. So, no, that's That's an interesting group. It definitely sounds like you're putting them in their place in a way. And I think that's good because there are a lot of kind of cult-like behaviors and cult-like people out there who are in these movements, and they get wrapped up, and sometimes they don't see clearly because of indoctrination. And it sounds like there might be some of that going on with the Hebrew Israelites.
Or a cult. And if you ever see them on the street, friendly neighborhood atheists, just keep walking. Just keep walking.
Because they're going to call you an Edomite.
They're going to do worse than that.
Oh, man.
Devil and everything else in the book.
Hey, I want to say, Kenneth Leonard said you live in the suburbs, Ethan, and I lived in Aurora when I was in Illinois, so I have to out myself. I always pretend like Chicago, but I'm really Chicagoland.
Yeah, it's same. It's most people don't know, like, hey, I lived in Naperville. I lived in Lisle. They're like, huh? So I just say Chicago.
Wait, you were really in Lisle or Naperville?
Yeah, that's where I grew up most of my life, followed by Romeoville.
Oh my gosh, that's so close to where I grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. Did you go to Fox Valley, the mall?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite malls to go to. That and
I used to hang out there all the time when I was in high school. That's my favorite place. That's classic.
So Ethan, let me ask you something, Ethan. How would you present your atheism different than a militant, well, not a militant atheist, than a strong atheist? A strong atheist would say that, I'm just confident that the God of the Bible don't exist because he has a contradictory nature, and they'll present themselves as a very, how can I describe this? As a very aggressive, angry, frustrated person that believes that Christianity is in the way. If you was presenting your atheism, how would you present it to someone if they ask you, well, why are you an atheist? And like, what are your reasons for being an atheist? What makes you different than a Pat Cordell or a Matt Dillahunty or some of these other guys that's out there?
So, I mean, I would, when it turns to atheists, I think we, and I don't want to speak for Matt because he's not here, but I think we share a similar reason in the sense that I personally have yet to see convincing evidence that makes me a believer. To kind of backtrack on that, I always used to refer to myself as a Christian, but looking back, it could be argued that I wasn't, necessarily a Christian, because it was easier for me to give up my beliefs when essentially I was met with the challenge of, I don't know isn't a good reason to believe in God. And it was kind of from there I realized that, and I'm not saying other people do this, I'm only speaking to myself, that throughout the entirety of my life, I was saying, well, I don't have a better explanation, so therefore I believe God did it. So for me, it was a lot easier to let go. Now, at the end of the day, though, I want to believe what's true. So if my position is wrong, if God is real, I want to know. I don't want to be sitting here and out of the loop. Like, give me your evidence, get me to God. Like, I want to get there, but I just haven't personally seen anything convincing. I guess the main difference I would say between Matt and I is I have a very different approach. All right, let me give you an example. G-Man, if you went up to the average person in religion, there's a lot that you're going to talk about that they're, one, not going to be able to keep up with, or it's not going to appeal to them. And that's to me where I come in. I want to appeal to the average person. For instance, I have many friends that message me after certain videos. They're like, oh, I just watched your video on moral ontologies and I lasted 5 minutes. That stuff's so boring. And it stinks that people view knowledge that way, but the fact is they do. To many people, those complexities are boring or they get lost on them. So I would describe myself as trying to appeal to the average person to get them engaging in these conversations and bring the conversations to a level that they can comprehend. For instance, I could walk up to my brother and be like, you're committing this logical fallacy, you did this, you did this. He's going to be like, okay. Like, pointing that out doesn't fix the conversation or doesn't help the conversation if that person doesn't even understand what a logical fallacy is. So I try and engage on a middle ground and not necessarily get as hung up on the smaller details. The thing is, I think those smaller details are important depending on the person you're engaging with. Like, for instance, when I'm not a debater, but when I debated a presuppositionalist, those little details needed to be hung up on, because if we couldn't agree on a definition, we can't move forward. But the average person, you know what they're talking about. You don't need to spend 45 minutes figuring out what no means or how you know. You can move forward with the conversation in good faith.
Yeah, that seems fair. I just thought of a commonality between you two, besides the fact you're both male, but one commonality between you two is that both of you have either, I forget if it's stepdad or dad, but you have Muslim stepdad or dads. But you also had the Christian mom. I think that's in both cases. Is that true?
For me, it is. My stepdad was a Muslim. My biological dad was a Muslim. And my mother was the one claiming to be a Christian. I grew up in a very confusing home. So and my mom telling me not to trust. Okay, this is what my childhood was like. My mom was telling me Jesus and don't trust what is it? Don't trust white people. My dad was telling me about Muhammad and Allah. And I actually have a picture of me wearing the Muslim thingy on my head when I was little. I'm going to show you that one day. And he was telling me not to trust black people. So I had a very confusing home that I grew up in. You know.
Yeah, that would be.
Real quick, there's a comment I want to address. Humanity.
I rejected both of them, by the way, just to let you know when I was growing up.
The comment from the lawless, humanity sucks. I'm not going to say the other word. No, I would disagree. I like humanity. I think sometimes people get lost or they lose their way, and we just need to find a way to get them back on the right track and just help them. You know, not everyone's willing to take a chance or immediately do good things. Sometimes you have to show them the way. So I reject that humanity sucks.
That's a good. I want to say thank you to John Lloyd, by the way, for the super chat. He basically has always been generous, and he's one of the mods here. Really nice guy. So thank you, John. So what about you, Ethan? You grew up obviously in a house with different religions as well.
Yeah, so we were raised. I was raised Christian, although we didn't go to church all the time. And then I went to a Catholic junior high, and despite what most people think, it was not the reason I became an atheist. It was quite literally my favorite school. I had a great time there. It did a lot for my confidence. And the priest and the nun who was the principal, two of the nicest people I had ever met in my life. So I have nothing but positive things to say about that particular school. But yeah, I was never really raised in a heavy religious environment. It was just more, constantly being told God exists, Jesus exists. And I did have many questions, and it just not on the religious spectrum. I always have questions. Like, one of my mother's favorite stories is the time I came flying in while she's on the phone saying, "Oh my God, mom, I need you, get off the phone." And she's like, what? And I was like, "How long does it take a spider to walk from here to Chicago?" And she was so mad. She's like, "You interrupted me for that." But that's the point, is I always have these questions. Like, I always want to know these things. So the answers I always got, and I'm not saying there aren't answers out there, just the ones I received didn't hold up for me.
I have to say, with the spider in Chicago, I'm just thinking of, for some reason, I don't know if you guys ever remember that Saturday Night Live called Deep Thoughts. Someone would say some random thing like, it takes X amount of days for a spider to get to Chicago from Aurora, or something like that. And you're like, deep thoughts from, So you're the one behind all that. It's you, Ethan.
I think of the wildest things. And I just want, I'll instantly jump on a Google black hole and just start nonstop until I figure out what that answer is.
John Lloyd says, "G-Man, I also enjoy your work. I missed you while you was on hiatus." Thank you, John Lloyd. I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure I say that because I can't leave a comment here or whatever.
Yeah, thank you.
But I think the big difference between me and Ethan is that I'm a little more aggressive about what I do here on the net, with spreading what I'm trying to spread here on YouTube, preaching the gospel and correcting various different beliefs that's out there. You know what I mean? And doing it objectively, whereas you're just trying to connect with people and trying to get people to understand your position on a level that everybody can understand. See it. I just call it dumbing it down, because there are terms that me and SJ can use that are theologically sound that we can use with the audience, and nobody's going to understand us. So we'll use everyday words so that they can get it, they'll understand it, and even the children in your house are going to understand it. And we're hoping that because they understand it, that is going to affect their psyche. So I totally get and understand what it is that you're saying. With that, me and you both are similar. There are other people out there that feel the need to use these 900-letter words and hope to try to convince people with that. No, you know, it's better to say 3 words that a person can understand than 900 that nobody understands.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
So-
no, I think that's always good. I realized when I was doing today's debate, I got into a debate on objective morality, and I was trying to put my slides together, and I thought I could go down a huge rabbit trail starting to talk about the deep stuff on moral ontology and moral realism and moral relativism. And I thought, how quickly can I lose everyone's attention if I do that?
Exactly.
So I decided to take it more even. What'd you say?
You run the chance of boring people to death, or
That's
having
another
them
one.
go, I don't understand what she's saying. You know what I mean? But if you keep them for the whole debate, you're going to influence somebody.
Yeah, if you do the right, I think if you put in some analogies and things like that on those kind of debates, and I think if you, and I look back to some of the things where I've seen that have won, the debates I've seen that won, and I don't do the, you know, I'm not a very good debater, so I'll admit that right off the front, but the ones I've seen that when people won, it's like they get to the end and they sum it up really well, and they're able to steelman other people really well, and I think that those are good strengths for a person who's debating.
G-Man, when you say you're more like aggressive with it, can you give me an example?
Oh, okay. When I had that first encounter with Matt Dillahunty, for example, when I called the Atheist Experience, I called the show and he hung up on me. Now, I didn't particularly like that too tough. You know what I mean? So when that was over, I made about 8 or 9 videos talking about that experience on the Atheist Experience, questioning his Christianity, well, his former claim as being a Christian, questioning and clarifying some things about slavery, and just really going after his argument and not letting go despite what anybody else said. I dedicated a 4 to 5 video series on the topic of slavery, what my position was, and just dealing with the atheist argumentation against it and showing why it was illogical and they didn't know what they were talking about. And I tried to find anybody who was an atheist on the internet that talked about this particular topic and to refute them on this topic. And like this would happen in succession. And I would invite anybody to come into what was called back then Google Hangouts to come in and actually talk about this topic. As a matter of fact, I have a video on my channel where I literally changed the mind of 9 atheists like that on the topic of indentured servitude. They all kept saying that it was immoral until we actually broke down what that actually meant. And all of the atheists in the room agreed that there was nothing wrong with indentured servitude.
Yeah, I would agree to that too, actually. I think that's a good point.
So if we could how would you define indentured servitude?
A person that is basically working to pay off a debt, a person that is in a contract where a person will live with the person and just work. You know what I mean? In the Bible, a Hebrew would actually work for another Hebrew for 7 years. And yes, that is a form of slavery. Some people call it servanthood, but it's a form of slavery. But either during the 7th year or the year of Jubilee, they would let go, and they were given things when they let go. In our modern day world today, you can actually get a job and you can be under contract and you'll live with the person and you have to fulfill your contract and you have to do all of your duties at that particular time. You know what I mean? And you have to do everything to the letter according to the contract that you guys agreed to. And when the contract is over, you're able to leave. That is a form of indentured servitude. So when I brought that up in that hangout with those atheists, they couldn't find anything immoral with that. The only thing they could say is that if you're giving up your what do you call it, your freedom, that somehow means that's a bad thing. Not if you're voluntarily doing it. There's nothing immoral with that whatsoever. I can give up my freedom right now and give it to somebody and give somebody lordship over my life. You know what I mean? There's nothing immoral about that if I'm willfully making the decision to do that. You know what I mean? Someone forces you to do it. That's something different. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this. What if, let's say right now, I go to another country and I find I find a girl that wants to marry me. Sorry, woman. Say she's 21 years old. And I offer her this better life. And the only reason she's taking it is because her current life is horrible. You wouldn't say that's immoral of me to take advantage of that and like using that against her for the specific fact that she
I don't think that's the same thing, because that happens all the time. It's called arranged marriages. Some women will decide that I'm going to find an American man, I'm going to marry him because it will help me get out of this country to have a better life. I don't think that's the same thing. When we're talking about indentured servitude, we're talking about a contract agreement or an agreement between you and the person that's going to be working for you as a slave or a servant or whatever for a set amount of time. So it's just a little different.
What if
It's kind of, it's hard for us to really understand that in our kind of society because we're a generally wealthy society. If you go back to before 1800, everyone pretty much in the vast majority of the world was living off less than $1 a day. And so when people would run up debts, they would sell their services, essentially themselves, to other people until they finished off their debts. And it wasn't like slavery, which is you weren't getting paid anything. You were sold into slavery for a lifetime, despite your objections. In these cases, these are voluntary agreements between people. And the assumption is that it's done on the up and up. Now, there are cases in different countries today where parents sell their kids into indentured servitude, which is pretty awful. And it's hard for us to even understand it all, but it's also because we're coming at it from a Western lens where we don't see the desperation and the poverty that are in those countries.
It would seem though that that's just in many ways ripe for danger, because you could subject the person to abuses. And like, for instance, what if that entails them working 16 hours a day and they literally only do it because they don't have a better option?
No, you're right. It is. It can be terribly abusive. I mean, even going back to before, say, go back pre-1900s here in the United States, people were working 12-hour days, 15-hour days, 18-hour days, sometimes getting barely any sleep. Before we had the unionization in 1935 with the National Labor Relations Act, we were a pretty big disaster for workers, and workers didn't have rights. And so that's how it is in the vast majority of the world, in the poor, very poor countries. That's how it had always been. But it's changing, and we're recognizing that. We recognize we don't like these indentured servitude relationships. And even in our country, some would argue that people working for a minimum wage are almost on the equivalent sort of relationship.
Yeah, so SJ talked about this earlier when we're talking about the different societies. In our present society, we're trying to judge a society that existed thousands of years ago with the Jews under the Mosaic Law. And then you have people with limited understanding talking about that society, talking about what the laws were, without understanding how they view the society and whether or not it benefited them. And the reason why these conversations end up becoming, what do they call them, train wrecks or car crashes or whatever, is because the people in the conversation are not looking at it from the lens of the other people. If we in our society today stop thinking about democracy and communism and socialism or whatever, and look at the society that they actually lived in at that particular time, and they looked at the benefits of these laws that was made for their particular time, it is really difficult to come to the conclusion that what they was practicing at that time was bad. There is no welfare, there is no social security back then. There is no, well, actually there is welfare if you look at it a little bit different, but there's no welfare, there's no social security, there is no government benefits and all these other things. God had to provide for the people who had and the people who had not. And laws had to be followed. You know what I mean? There wasn't no prisons that you was going to sit in for 80 and 90 and for like 30 life sentences or whatever. You know what I mean? It was restitution or it was death back then. And restitution helped the person who was wronged get back what was taken away from them or however they were wrong financially. Death is done because you want to purge evil away from the land. You don't want people thinking it's okay to do these things. So God instituted a death penalty. So when you hear me talk about Matt Dillahunty and the atheist community regarding slavery, and you hear me say that there's nothing wrong with slavery in of itself, that simply means S.J. Thomason owns G-Man right now. She hasn't told me to do anything. She hasn't done nothing to me. She just owns me. Okay? I'm her slave, but she hasn't told me to do anything. What all of us get mad about is when she owns me, what is she telling me to do? How am I being treated? How is she presenting herself? That's what we find immoral, if it's done in the evil way or whatever. But the act of her owning me, there's nothing wrong with that. And Matt Dillahunty, it took 2 calls to get him to understand that.
I think it's a hard thing because we don't like that idea of chattel slavery and property ownership and those sorts of things. Although you have to be pretty honest with what you see in the Bible and you understand the ancient Near Eastern context, that was something that was going on. And women were in that society because they couldn't produce as much. I mean, you have to be honest with what's going on here. Men were doing the work, women weren't doing the same kind of work as men were doing in the fields and the plowing and the bricklaying and all that kind of hard physical labor. So the women slaves weren't as valuable monetarily as the men slaves. And I know people get really up in arms about that. And they say, oh my gosh, how come it only costs X amount of, wasn't dollars, whatever it was, shekels for females, and it costs not, Y amount of shekels for males. Well, look at what the females can produce versus what the males were producing in those kind of societies. So it's a tough, I mean, I don't like it. It's not the ideal situation. We don't live under those laws. We don't live under that situation. That isn't to say there's a lot of confusion in the audience and they're all saying, oh my gosh, you're a cultural relativist. No, okay, here's the deal. Just because there are some culturally relative issues and ethically relative issues does not mean that there isn't also an objective moral standard. So what I'm saying is they can both exist concurrently. You can understand that there are certain things that are culturally relative and ethically relative, and there's an objective moral standard to which we all agree. Like, for example, we have the objective moral standard to the value of life. However, we realize in certain cultures, certain things are acceptable in certain situations in the ancient Near East. And so they still valued the objective moral value of life.
You know what I think gets in the way with today, SJ, regarding men and women of ancient times? It's not just the Bible. I mean, let's keep it real. It's Babylon, it was Egypt, it was all those different nations back then. And that's the issue of feminism today. You know what I mean? Where, they want equal opportunities for men and women today. You know what I mean? And they think that this was a concept back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Back then women had, because you talk about this in your channel a lot, about how Jesus treated the women. The women were the ones that discovered the empty tomb. You know what I mean? They had all the ministry that they didn't have in the Old Testament. You know what I mean? Jesus had elevated women during the time of the New Covenant, and I believe that he is playing a major role in women being edified today. You know what I mean? I think some of it goes a little bit overboard, but I think that he's playing a major role with women being edified today because of what's going on with the gospel and everything, right?
Actually, I'd like to jump on that because this kind of relates to that. It definitely relates in a way, but yes, point A, for sure what you said. In the ancient times, we saw that women were definitely considered second-class citizens. It's reflected in the Bible by Josephus, by a number of other people who are writing in history. We also saw through the centuries that women traditionally were treated up until recently in the United States, for example, not even having voting rights. Saudi Arabia finally getting the right to drive a car. I mean, you've got all this kind of stuff going on in the world. But and when I was listening to this, say 10 years ago, I was on this bus of hell yeah, I'm a feminist. I'm all about feminism, which to me, all I defined that was equal opportunities. Like I wanted the equal opportunity to get the job if I'm qualified, if I'm equally qualified. I wanted that sort of thing. So that's how I define feminist. But to what you just said, today, I think some women are taking this a little too far. And I'll be the first woman to say that. I think that it's gone a little too far in some places where, in the cases where they're demanding, say, equal board representation, we need to have 50% board representation at higher level businesses, when you have to be honest about the fact that you don't have that many women applying for those jobs. So there's this kind of thing. If you demand these sorts of representations, or that women are filling jobs for which they're not interested, like typically women don't go into the STEM fields. Women tend to go into nurturing roles. And so don't force the women into the STEM fields or act as if we need to see that many in the STEM fields if they're purely just not interested in it. They like the nurturing roles.
What if I have a great example of a modern day example, what you're talking about, the WNBA, where they're taking it too far.
I agree. I actually think that's taking it too far.
They need to call it the WLG, how can I put this? The W, I want to be too true, NBA, you know what I mean? So
just have
because the majority of them that are in there don't even want men. That's how far they've gone with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I haven't been following WNBA, but I do think I see that. And I see Ethan wanted to comment on that too, but yeah. I definitely think there's some, well, for example, here, actually I have another example you guys will like before I'll quickly go to Ethan. Women saying in sports that they need to be paid the same as men in sports. Okay, so you have a women's soccer league and a men's soccer league. You have to, as a business professor, I'm sorry, you have to look at, number one, the fact that the male sports are attracting way more people an audience. And so they're getting more money coming in, and it's a supply and demand thing. The demand isn't there for the women's field, so they can't get the same pay. It's seriously, that's the fair deal. I'm sorry,
Right.
women, but that's how it's got to be.
I get that. I guess I have an issue with it would be maybe the only reason it's like that is because men have been given preferential, particularly white men have been given preferential treatment throughout history. Like maybe we as men were given more of an advantage. We're the ones supposed to be playing supports, and women were not coming into it later on, or it wasn't as accepted, and therefore they didn't have as much time to develop it on the women's side.
Okay, from a business perspective, actually, it was correct when she said that interest plays a large role into it. The reason why the NBA gets as much money as they get, and the players get as much, is because men enjoy watching the NBA. How many men do you honestly know, Ethan? Sit down and can tell you, number one, all of the teams that's in the WNBA, who their favorite players are, because I can't even tell you that. And find that to be interesting. Some of them scores, I think, are like 60 points as a high for like the whole game. That's boring. Nobody wants to watch that. You know what I mean? But let them talk about the Lakers and the Clippers or something like that. Let them talk about the New England Patriots playing the Buccaneers or something like that. They're gonna run and watch something like that. You know what I mean? You can want to get paid, but you got to also be willing to do your due diligence to attract the audiences. And a lot of men just don't find these things interesting, and they're not going to spend the same money.
It's not just men, it's women too. I mean, I have to be I'm being candid here. I'm going to be honest about this stuff. There's a few things going on here. Number one, to Ethan's point, through the centuries, men have been honing their muscular skills and their athleticism when they were out there hunting and gathering for thousands and thousands of years. They're doing all this kind of stuff that's building up their body frames. You have big muscles, all this kind of stuff, bigger shoulders, bigger wingspans, much better ability to throw a ball, all that kind of stuff, because you've been doing these sorts of things for centuries, where women were the ones who were traditionally home taking care of the kids. So the women, honestly, you just don't have the physical bodies that the men have. And so that's number one. And number two, I have to agree with you guys, with G-Man on this point. When I go to watch NBA, if I watch basketball, or even if I watch my sons play basketball, and then I watched just before him, the girls' league was out there playing basketball, the guys are just more interesting because they can jump so much higher and they're throwing so much farther. And one last quick point, when I went to Top Golf last week with my family and my cousins, my husband's other family, our in-laws, we all went to Top Golf. My two sons, one's 14, one's 15, my husband and his twin all clocked golf balls well over 100 miles an hour. My one son got up to 114. And my sister-in-law and I could only clock him at 75. We just don't have the strength. And it's not just us. I mean, these are probably averages for women versus men. So it's more interesting to watch men because they can hit it a lot farther. Although I'm not against women in sports. I think it's wonderful if a woman wants to do that. I just have to say the numbers are for the men because they have there's more interest. You see that kind of athletic ability.
Let me ask you a question, Ethan. Let's say we got a woman playing quarterback in the NFL, right? Let's say it happens. Tell me something. Are you in support of a man actually nailing her the way we would nail a Tom Brady, or the way we would nail another quarterback? Are you in full support of a man coming at you that fast and that strong? Because if she's going to play in the NFL, then she's going to get tackled like she's in the NFL. I mean, you support that then, right?
So this is a real sticky topic, and I know where you're going with this, and I'm going to watch out. Yeah,
let's not go that far on this topic, because that's one thing that is like the sticky part that I don't want to get
Ali's daughter. Let's see who wins that one.
So, let me jump this back a little bit. What if the only reason that men are, I'm going off what you said, that men, throw balls farther, that they hit balls farther, and therefore makes it more interesting. What if the only reason it's like that is because men have always been raised up as the provider, the strength, or the strong one, the protector? Maybe if women had those same rights and advantages at an earlier time, there wouldn't be as big of a gap, or there wouldn't be any gap at all. But for how many years? Thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands of years. That's the thing.
People are physically stronger when they're born. This is not something that we've been given as an advantage or whatever. We're born physically stronger than women. One of the things, I don't know if you got kids or not, Nathan, but I know SJ does. SJ, do you have a daughter? I don't know.
No,
Have you ever seen a girl grow up before? Like, I mean, besides yourself.
Oh, of course, my cousins, my nieces, my sister.
Have you ever seen like a male dog and a girl dog at all, as puppies or like growing up? Have you ever seen the differences between the two?
Well, in the ones I've raised, the females are a little more docile.
Yeah, one of the things that you'll notice about young men when they're growing up is they like to be played with rough. I see a lot of women trying to be like this with them, and they don't like that. They like it when another guy comes and they're like, like being rough with them and like playing with them a certain way. But the girls, you got to be a little bit more gentle with, because they don't appreciate all of that. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about by nature. I'm not trying to be sexist or anything like that. I'm just telling you, like if you get a male, if you get like a male cat and a female cat, and you're rough with your male cat actually accepts that a little bit, because this is going to be the cat that's going to be competing with other male cats to have the right to mate with the female cat. They're going to be fighting each other in order to mate to mate with the female cats, right?
I've seen some pretty feisty female cats, so I don't know that that's
feisty ones too. But you don't see female cats fighting each other for the right to mate with a male cat or whatever. Like, you see this in nature. We see it in our society.
You do see it in nature all through. I mean, Jordan Peterson does a bunch of videos on this kind of stuff from the psychological view, and just from saying that actually it's kind of dangerous not to let males roughhouse when they're little kids, because they have a ton of energy and they really want to do that.
What about Ronda Rousey? Or Gina Carano?
Who are they?
With them?
Ronda Rousey had to learn all of that, and she's a good fighter. I wouldn't fight her, that's for sure.
Who's she? Mixed martial arts or something?
Yeah, she's like one of the baddest women on the planet.
Yeah, she's the best
people on the planet.
Oh, I've seen some of those pictures. I've seen those women. Holy cow. I wouldn't go near them, man. I was like, you bring one of those. I mean, they are muscular. I don't even know how it's possible to get muscles like that on a woman, but yeah, some of them. I've seen those. There's a guy, Travis, on Twitter, who always posts all those mixed martial arts female pictures. And I just look at this muscle set and I think to myself, how in the world did you do that? It's amazing.
You know what, SJ, talking about this topic of, and then we can get off of this because I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. This is one of the things I don't like about feminists, right? They want equal rights, and they want not equal rights. They want to be equal pay and be treated just like the men. They don't want no special treatment. Now, men, straight men are going to want to date these women at some point, right? So, we try to be polite, we hold the door open for you. And then it's like, I don't want you to hold the door for me. And then, like, you get some of them that if you don't do it, then you're not being a gentleman. Like, which is it? Is it, do I hold the door open for you or not? You know what I mean? Do I jump in front of the bullet or not? Do I get hit by a car instead of you or not? Are we now saying that when a burglar comes in the house that I hide underneath the bed and that she protects me? Even if I was married to Ronda Rousey, I got the mentality that you're going to go under the bed. I'm going to take the rifle and I'm going to go try to find out who just broke in the house. And that's how I'm built.
You were raised that way. I was raised the same way, and simply being raised that way doesn't mean it's necessarily the correct way.
Oh wait, no! Keep opening the door and taking the bullet. Are you kidding me?
So, and I would say
I'm all for that.
I mean, handle yourself in that situation would just be to ask your partner.
Ask an opinion.
I have dated women who would like me to open the door for them, and I'm okay with that. And I've dated other women who don't want me to open the door for them, and I'm okay with that too. I think the most important thing to do is just ask, hey, what do you prefer? And that immediately solves a problem that probably shouldn't be common.
Let me ask you something, Ethan. Keep it real. Somebody breaks into your home, what you're going to do? And your wife and your children is there. What are you going to do, despite her request?
I can defend myself. I unfortunately have a lot of experience being in scenarios that I'm not proud of. And I defended myself, but as later years came on, I found better ways to defend myself. I didn't.
You hide under the bed, and your wife goes and defends you.
No, I would always, so I'm not married anymore, but I would defend my ex-wife with my life in a heartbeat.
But that's not what I asked you, and that's not the spirit in which I asked you this. If let's say I'm the burglar and I kick in your door and I got a knife and I'm looking to rob you and hurt your family and everything and whatnot, who defends the home? You or your wife?
I would personally do, but I can't tell you that which one's necessarily the correct scenario. I mean, typically 2 people could guard the home. The woman could be just as capable. However, at least in the relationship I was in, I could tell you that I would be the one jumping up and asking her to hide. But I'm not saying that there aren't scenarios where the situation couldn't be reversed.
This goes back to what S.J. Thomas had said earlier. This is why we make more money. You know what I mean?
Well,
At
no,
the end of the day,
well, it's not. It's because you guys are taking. Actually, I've done studies on this. You guys actually work longer hours on average. 42 versus women work 42 versus 45 weekly on average. You take the tougher jobs. You take the more dangerous jobs. You take the physical jobs. You take the jobs that risk your health and your life. You take the logging jobs. You take you're down there in the caves. I don't mean the caves. I mean the what's it called? The coal mines. So you're doing a lot of these different kind of things. You're the ones driving the oil trucks. There's a lot of reasons why on average the pay is like it is. Plus women tend to leave the workforce for a while, have kids, and then come back. So I could go out reason after reason after reason. But even after I do control for all of those, there's still a little bit of a pay gap. So there's still a little bit of something else going on. But going back to this idea of people protecting, I can honestly say, number one, in our house, there is a gun. It's hidden somewhere. My husband showed me where it is one time, and I didn't really like the fact that it's in the house, but nobody will ever find it because the way he's a builder and he knows how to hide things. But number two is if somebody does break in, I have no idea how to even use that thing. So it's got to be him. So he's going to have to do that. But number three, if I did know how to use it, that'd be different. If I were a female police cop, or I'm a female, someone in the military or something like that, and I know how to handle the gun, that's a totally different thing. But in general, I think usually the male's the one defending the house, and the female and the kids are hiding in the closet or somewhere like that. And so, and I'm fine with that.
It goes against nature too, because like I said, when you're looking at like lions and tigers and bears and everything, you know what I mean? It's always the male protecting the family, or protecting their, what do you call it?
Well, that's how it's been historically through the centuries.
So it's really us as humans that are trying to rethink the idea of who should protect who or whatever. And I think that we are in error. The Bible says, for example, Ethan, that there is a way that appears right unto a man, but in the end, it leads to destruction. You know what I mean? We may think we know what's the best way to do something, but I believe, and this is when we start getting to the Christian faith, that God has set everything up in such a way where it doesn't contradict nature, it doesn't contradict our humanity or anything like that. You know what I mean? I am never going to be the person that's going to, I don't even care if my wife is a cop. No disrespect, SJ, but I am not hiding underneath no bed. having a,
No, I didn't say you shouldn't get out there with her. I'm just saying I wouldn't, if she's going to run out there with a gun too, and she wants to also defend the house, let her do it, have at it. What I don't hear, I'm also really old fashioned on this one too. I've got 2 female friends who are in the military who completely disagree with me, but I don't like the idea of women being on the front lines in combat in the military. And I know that's a real touchy subject because again, I feel like what if they get caught, and it's going to be hard for them to defend themselves physically on average. They're not like the MMA fighters typically. They're usually more like my kind of frame. And I can't stand up to even my 15-year-old son. I can't believe the guy can completely beat me on arm wrestling already. It's ridiculous. And so can the little one.
Women I've encountered that could just bulldoze through most men, and just because you can't do it doesn't necessarily mean other women can't do it. And I would argue that in my experience, women are 10 times more calm than men. I can't compare this to war, but I worked in a I'm not trying to draw a comparison, I'm just trying to give an example. I worked at a bar for many years. Do you know how often women started fights versus men? Women were often the ones calming the scenario down. So if they want to be on the front line, I'm all for it, because if anything, they're probably going to accomplish a lot more. Because perfect example with me and G-Man, we in our minds want to think that we have to defend women. We have to be the protectors. In my opinion, we need to stop thinking like that. Women can be just as fierce protectors. You know, my mom would kill somebody if somebody messed with me. Like, I just think we're discounting women way too much.
There's a difference between protecting your children and then like protecting the home. There's just a big difference with that. And I believe that kind of thinking is not good as humans, but it goes against nature. Nature even testifies that that's not practical. You know, like I said, you have scenarios where women are better capable warriors than men because they were trained in the military, or they were trained in the police academy, or they know karate or kung fu or ninjutsu or something like that. In those scenarios, that's very different. You know what I mean? But when we're talking about the average person, and we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I know, like, the people in the audience don't like the fact that I said it. I do know women soldiers. I mean, I know a woman. I've got a couple of good friends. One was in the Air Force, really good friends of mine, and the other one is a Navy captain. So I mean, I'm very familiar with that sort of thing. And they're strong women, but they can't. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that so much. But I understand that there are also some women out there. So you should not just make a blanket statement on women and say, oh no, we can't have women doing this. On the other hand, I look at situations where on the other hand, I don't like to see women in certain positions as much in combat, like in the military, literally on the front lines, running there with the guns next to the men. I mean, some of them can handle it and can be great, but I would look at it on a case-by-case basis just to make sure that they've got that kind of stamina and all that kind of good stuff. But I agree with Ethan as far as the point. I've got two examples really quickly. One was when I was in college and I was standing in the line for a bathroom in a bar. I was standing in line and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And all of a sudden this girl comes and she tries to cut in front of me. And I said, listen, I've been waiting here for a while. You know, I really had to go. And she said, do we need to take this outside? We got to fight over this. I'm like, are you kidding me? I just couldn't believe a girl would say that. And of course I just started laughing and blew her off. But the other thing is, so that's usually the women. Women are not usually picking fights in bars and that kind of thing. But the other hand is, if I have to defend myself, I can assure you. I mean, I got away from a guy who tried to sit in the back of my car when I was in college and grab my hand and tried to basically attack me. And I was able to get away because when it comes to fight or flight, man, I am flying. So
if we're going to have these tests for women to see if they're capable of it, then we should have the same tests for men. Because I would easily posit that there are many people in both the men in the military and police force that are not cut out for the job psychologically or physically.
Oh, they do psychological. I'll tell you what, I mean, Ethan, they do a ton of psychological tests already and intelligence tests. You have to have an IQ score of 83 or more to be in the American military.
Right, but my point is the any tests we do, they need to be, in my opinion, equal across the board. And I feel like
they probably are. I'll bet you the military does have physical and mental and psychological, and I know they have mental and psychological tests. So I'm sure they have some sort of physical level that you have to achieve.
I have a question. SJ, you got 25 people watching right now. I'm sorry, I'm gonna do this, but 25 is gonna probably turn into 50 soon when I ask this question because I'm about to push a lot of buttons by asking this question. Okay, we're talking about pay and we're talking about the roles in the home, right? There's another little topic that comes up since we're talking about equality. I really want to test you with this one, Ethan. So first of all, before I say what I'm going to say, the audience, I'm not doing this to try to be a jerk or nothing like that. SJ, I'm not trying to trigger you. But I love asking people who support feminism, like on the level of Ethan, this kind of question because it really reveals like what we're talking about right now. So SJ, if you want me to shut up, SJ, I will. We'll change the topic, okay? Ethan, how do you feel about men hitting women and the laws that are made, especially in New Jersey? Sure. The man puts his hand on hold on a minute. Should a man be locked up if he punches a woman in the face if they had an argument?
I think a person should be locked up if they punch another person in the face.
I agree with that. Men and women.
Okay. If a man smacks a woman in the face, should he be locked up?
I think if a person slaps a person in the face, they should be locked up.
Then
I don't know about locked up for slapping.
With a lot of New Jersey laws and a lot of the laws that are out here today, because if the police comes to a domestic situation and they find out that the man hit the woman, most of the time, and they had it back and forth, most of the time, the man is the one being taken away in cuffs, even though she put her hands on him. And so if you believe that it's okay, hold on a minute, if you believe that it's okay for a man to hit a woman, okay, you got no problem with that, then you got to disagree with a lot of these laws.
I have a problem with people attacking people, man or woman. Like, I am against violence, and I see no need to say that we need to keep pitting it in a man versus woman scenario. I don't like violence. I despise violence. And I don't think people should be hitting other people.
SJ, please, let me just go with him for a second here.
No, please.
Here's the thing. You're not taking a side, though. That's the thing. You're saying that you have a problem with human beings hitting human beings. Okay? I could easily give you Muhammad Ali's daughter versus Mike Tyson and whether or not it should be legal for them to get in the ring if she gained a little bit of weight and actually box them. We can talk about that. But I'm talking about, should a man in any situation be able to hit a woman? Yes or no? Because she's either this frail, fragile person and the man is generally stronger, or they're equal and it's all good. What's your position on this? And you can't just stay in the middle and go, well, humans shouldn't hit humans. You're avoiding it, and you know you are.
Oh, I'm not avoiding it. I am answering it as honestly as possible. I think you're taking a broad question and you're putting this small.
You know it's not broad. You know it's not broad. S.J. Thomas, let me ask you this, S.J., because me and you share a similar position.
Sorry.
In any scenario where a man should be able to hit a woman? In any scenario?
In any scenario, well, if the woman is, say, beating up on somebody else, I look at if it's in self-defense, and there could be cases where it is in self-defense. There could be cases where the woman is stronger than the men, for example, and she's beating up on him and he's merely defending himself. I see you have to kind of look at these situations and see what's going on.
Exactly.
Really quickly, I want to say thank you to Ricardo Oliveira with the super chat. He said, despite being unable to agree with your views, I still respect your work and your time. So thank you so much, Ricardo.
Amen and amen. So my point of bringing that up, Ethan, if we're going to talk about equality, then you should have no problem with Muhammad Ali's daughter getting in the ring with Tyson or Holyfield or with Mayweather or whatever. You know what I mean? And if he hits her, really clocks her, you know what I mean? And then you should have no problem with that whatsoever. It's legal. The MMA, we should be able to see Brock Lesnar take on Ronda Rousey. We should have no problem with that whatsoever, right? If she chooses to do it then, right?
So that can kind of be applied across the board, because right now I wouldn't be okay with Mike Tyson taking on my little nephew. And that's
for me
an unfair scenario. And you're literally just bringing this down. It's too big of a discussion. You're limiting it to
no. I'm not doing that. This is where this conversation is going to get good now. I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is I'm bringing up a reality in this country about a lot of the laws where a lot of men. I forget the YouTube channel. SJ, one day I want to review her channel one day. But this woman has this channel where she talks about how women uses feminism to get a lot of men illegally locked up, right? And you already said in self-defense, SJ, that a man is justified for defending himself because he's not actually trying to do it to hurt her.
Yeah, I've watched that cop show where sometimes you'll see a woman just pummeling some guy.
Right.
So,
but if you're a feminist and you believe in equality, a woman should be able to pick up her own bags, whether they be too heavy or not. A woman should be able to take a hit from a man without feeling like, I want to call the police. How dare you hit me or whatever. You know what I mean? And I noticed that, Ethan, it's not just you, Ethan. There's a lot of people that resort to that. Well, humans shouldn't be hitting humans. We're not talking about whether or not humans are hitting humans. We're talking about a man clocking a woman. What is your stance about men hitting women? Is it the same thing as a man hitting a man?
I'll be honest. I'm totally against that. I'm totally against a man hitting a woman unless there's some really unusual circumstances where the woman is absolutely punneling him, or she's running after him with a gun or something like that, and he has no other way to defend. And whatever it is, it has to be self-defense. It can't be just some willy-nilly, I'm going to go punch her because I don't like what she said.
I agree with you.
I think a person should be able to defend themselves against an attack. And if a woman is physically attacking a man, then the man should be able to defend himself. I don't see why that would be a problem. Now, I'm not going to say that I would hit a woman, mainly because of how I was raised. But the problem is being told not to hit a woman your entire life doesn't necessarily mean, and I want to choose my words carefully here because I know who I'm in the room with, doesn't necessarily mean that it's rational just because I was taught that. So what
I agree with that. I agree.
So yeah, I guess what I am trying to do is unlearn what I've been told and try and just view everyone as people and not put them into, men versus women category.
All right. I agree that is not automatically rational because somebody told you to do something, therefore it's right. I understand that. But the topic and how serious this topic is with both men. You know what I mean? Any woman can put on her face and say we hit her. You know what I mean? And then the cops be like, how dare you? And then they'll lock you up or whatever. You know what I mean? But if you hit another man, somebody, come on, man, I'll take it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there is I think I think one of the things you're getting at, and I think that I can see some value to this, is what happened to my brother. Like my brother went over to Germany and he got a girl pregnant, and they started hitting it off at first, and then she decided to have the baby and they didn't get along. And so something happened. She had the baby and my brother was unable to see the baby for a few months. And it was really hard on him because he discovered that he had his son, his first and only son, via Facebook on her Facebook page. And so he came to find out that at that time there were barely any rights for the man in that kind of situation. And so he had to prove, for example, that he is the father and go through the testing and that sort of thing. And eventually they made up, and now they're really good friends. And so it's all worked out pretty well after some years. But it just drew my attention to the few rights a man has in some of these kind of situations. And I kind of feel bad for the guy like my brother, who he wanted to do that kind of thing. And so he wanted to do that. I kind of feel badly because I understand it takes two to make the baby. And I realize women have to go through the pregnancy, but to withhold the baby from the father, I think was a really hard situation on my brother.
Well, let's talk about that, Ashay, because we can get off the feminism topic. I think that would be pretty cool. And I would love to hear your
I'm always firmly behind women's rights. I was raised by 4 women, and I think they raised a compassionate man who also knows how to stand his ground. And I think that is one of my greatest gifts, is the fact that I was raised by 4 women. So, and I would, many occasions, I think women handle things way better than men, because we have to puff out our chests. We're taught that, oh, you're the man, you have to do this, you're the strong one. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Women are just as strong or just as capable. And I will, in any time, proudly take a back seat and prop another woman up to take my place.
Okay, there's some things that with that statement I don't agree with. First of all, you're right. There are women out there that can take a lot. They can take a lick and keep on taking. You're right about that. And women go through a lot in this country. I don't want to downplay that at all. But what we Christians typically say is that we're equal, but we have different that we have different responsibilities or different what do you call it? Well, what is it, Ashay, that we are equal, but we have different
well, I would say there's, to some extent, there's
what I mean?
Sort of different roles.
I'm sorry.
I would say in a lot of situations, there's different roles, that men are just well suited for certain roles and women are well suited, but not even that. They just happen to choose those same kind of roles. Like men love things. Men like roles. Like one of the reasons men like engineering is because they like this idea of things. They're the ones who tend to like the cars and the TVs and that sort of thing in the house. Females tend to take these roles that are the nurturing kids and those sorts of roles. Like most of the K through 12 teachers are female because they like nurturing, and same with the daycare workers and the nurses.
The danger of this kind of a conversation, though, because all of this leads to stuff. Like right now, you're starting at the position of feminism, Ethan, or you're supporting a lot of feministic ideas and whatnot. Me and Ashay are supporting more of a traditional role, right? But this country is heading more and more into a position where people are confused about their gender. You understand what I'm saying? Where they don't even know if they're a man or a woman. And that's why I strongly oppose, these ideas of a person being raised in a home simply by a woman. You want a more complete way to grow up. You need the nourishment and the loving, caring, compassion that you're going to get from the mother. You know what I mean? You're going to spend most of your time with her anyway, because the dad's probably going to be out there working. In some houses, both of them are working or whatever these days. But the man is going to harden you up, especially if you're a young man. He's going to harden you up. He's going to make sure that you understand life's lessons. He's going to make sure that you understand and you're properly prepared for the world that you're about to walk in. Whereas your mom is going to be more of like a friend, more of a nourisher, more of a caregiver or whatever to you. But when you say that that's all you're getting is the woman's side, and you don't have no male bonding whatsoever, and you believe that's healthy for a man,
I can actually.
No way, Jose. I don't support that at all.
Personal experience, I can completely object to that. But I do have a question for you, SJ. Do we have room for one more? If it was Kenneth Leonard, real stand-up, nice guy. Do we have room for him to join?
I'd say.
Well, I'm sorry. Who is this?
Is it because I told Puck before?
Yeah, Puck can't make it. No, G-Man, I assure you, Kenneth is one of the nicest, kindest atheists you'll ever meet. I would not bring.
I want to make sure it's not Baldilocks. That's all. I want to make sure it's not Baldilocks.
No. All right, I just copied him the link, so he should be here in a moment. But okay, so G-Man, Do you want to know
I think
one of the best lessons my mother ever taught me? I
What was
was
it?
I was 5 years old, and she was always scared that because I didn't have a male role model, that she needed to play both parts. And I walk up to the playground, and a kid significantly larger than me punches me in the stomach. I go back and I am crying to my mom, and she didn't know what to do, but she looked at me and she said, Ethan, you have to stand up for yourself. I went back there. Now, I'm not advocating for violence, but I went back there and I punched this kid that was 3 years older than me back in the stomach, and he went home. So, what specifically did I miss from being raised by a man that my mom or the other women in my life weren't able to provide me? Because rest assured, all the qualities of standing up for myself, both physically and mentally, was taught to me by women. So, what can a man give me that women have not?
My God, I wish this was my channel right now. Anyway, so again, a man is going to teach you how to be a man. I'm not being disrespectful to the women that are watching this, but there ain't a lot of things a woman's going to teach me about football, basketball, defending women, working hard. Let me finish. You know, masculine. In order for you to embrace your masculinity, you need to be around other masculine men and not be around estrogen all the time if you want to come out being a masculine man.
Let me add something. There's a couple of things going on here. I mean, we have in our society right now, I just opened it up for Kenneth. In our society right now, we do have, even if as a Black man, coming from G-Man, I want to say in the Black population in the United States, 65% of the families are run by a single mom at home. And so this idea of having a father role model is something that the Black community in a lot of cases are calling out for. And so I think that there's a strength to that. There's definitely a good thing in having the if possible, two-parent home. But unfortunately, in some cases, you don't get that. Like my sister, for example, had 3 young kids, and she and her husband could not get along for anything. And so for a number of years, for like 5 years, she was raising the kids herself, 1 boy and 2 little girls. And everything went fine. She tried to give them everything that she could. And then she eventually got married to my neighbor, and now they're up in Michigan and everybody's happy again. But she had a 5-year period where she wasn't without the kids didn't have that dual family background. And so I realize certain situations lend themselves to different things, but I think it's good to promote just to the younger generation. Hey, if you do get married, you try to get married if you're going to have kids, and try to stick it out if possible, unless there's some abuse going on, which I won't go into that, but anyway, unless there's some abuse going on or something like that, try to stick out the deal and try to raise the kids just to give them both sides on the equation.
And with that being said about the Black community, where a lot of Black men are not there, and it's just a single mom taking care of the children, I find it kind of odd that I'm talking to another man who thinks it's nothing wrong with just a woman raising the child. It's one of the reasons why the home is the mess that it is today.
Okay, so G-Man, so real quick, let's welcome Kenneth Leonard, by the way.
Hi, Kenneth.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? I was watching and I was messaging with Ethan, and I was like, you guys are having so much fun. I wish I could like get tagged in with Ethan. And he's like, maybe you can. So thanks for having me participate.
No problem. So what's your story, Ken? In kind of a nutshell, are you on the atheist side or on the Christian side?
Yeah, I'm one of those dirty heathen types. I came out of a background of growing up in a evangelical Christian home, and long story short, I'm a non-believer nowadays, and participate on Ethan's channel. I've done some debating here and there. I'm more into conversational stuff than the formalized debates, though, these days.
Yeah, I think the conversational is good. It's easier. It's more stressful in a debate.
Sure.
All right. So real quick, I want to jump back to you, G-Man. What again specifically am I missing that a man could have provided in my life? Because if it's football, then I don't care, because I think football.
Masculinity.
Okay. Can you give me a specific example, like a trait?
Being tough, being able to understand your role as a leader. Who do you believe is the leader of the home?
I'm okay with, so one, we can both lead the home. I don't think there needs to be a set.
I asked who the home was. I asked who's the leader of the home.
There doesn't need to be a leader. You can both work together for a common goal. One area, a woman may take more lead, and another area, the man may take more lead.
Let me make sure I heard you correctly, so I don't strawman you. You said that there doesn't need to be a leader?
In the household, there doesn't need to be, hey, this one person is specifically in charge. No, if you can meet on middle ground, you can both work together for a better relationship.
Do you believe that a woman is going to be able to understand all of the issues of a man? Or do you think a man would know better how to talk to another man?
Okay, so a man may know better how to talk to another man, whereas a woman may know how to talk better to another woman, only because that's from personal life experience.
Wouldn't that depend largely
so
on,
if I'm a man and I'm raising
you,
I'm sorry, Kenneth, 1 second. If I'm a man and I'm raising you, then I'm going to teach you how to get ready for the world as a man, because a woman only knows but so much about what goes on with us internally. Let me give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about, Ethan. SJ, you have boys, right? Let's say Ethan's much younger. Let's cut his age in half. Let's make him a little bit younger. Let's make him 10, right? He just came home from school and he misbehaved. Can you give everybody an example of how a woman will talk to him for misbehaving at school? And then I'm going to give an example of how a man would do it. Could you please do that, SJ?
What exactly did he do to misbehave? Do you have an example of that?
Oh yeah, he got into a fight and he cussed the teacher out.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I'm going to make him call up the teacher and apologize. My husband's probably maybe would yell at him a bit, and I'm going to make him, he's going to have to pay for that.
Now, are we acting like
I'm
now?
going to come home and say, listen, Ethan, Ethan, you don't talk to another adult like that. You be a man and you're going to pick up that phone and you're going to apologize to that teacher. And then you're going to apologize to your mother for wasting her time for doing this. And you're going to get in that room and you're going to go to bed. And if you got any back talk, it's going to be any problem. Do you understand? And he's going to be like, yes, sir, I'm going to go do it, sir. You know what I mean? And there's a difference.
Man, you have not met my grandma, because she would intimidate the crap out of you. That woman is a little
left the city in here, man. Honestly, you guys are calling me the Democrat so much as not. Anyway, go ahead, Kenneth.
I'm just wondering why we're acting like these are like gendered responses. I mean, I have a background of being in the Army. I knew female drill instructors who would get right up in your booty just as much as the male drill sergeants would. I don't think that it's fair to, or even remotely accurate to suggest that just because SJ might respond in one way and G-Man might respond in another way, that these are somehow representative of people across entire, genders of how they might act. I mean, I've met some scary ladies and some kind of passive guys in my life. These don't seem to be gendered traits, what you're describing. Unless I could be missing something.
Let me ask you a question, Kenneth. Yeah. What is the difference between them? Because I think I know what's going on here now. What's the difference between a man and a woman in 2020?
I want to understand how you're using the terms. Are you talking about gender, or are you talking about sex? What are we talking about here?
Okay, I'll ask this question again. I'm sorry, because I don't know. Sometimes my microphone's not working. What is the difference between a man and a woman? What's the difference?
Right. I mean, so just to make sure, maybe my mic wasn't working either. Are we talking about sex or gender? What are we talking about?
Right now we're talking about sex. What's the difference?
Well, now we're talking about chromosomes.
Chromosomes is the only difference?
Probably. Maybe you can point to typical differences in things like genitalia.
Do you support transgenderism? Do you believe that if somebody has a sex change, that automatically means that they become a different sex?
If someone has a sex change, do they become a different sex? No, but that doesn't have anything to do with transgender.
Well, there's somebody on YouTube that I know, for example.
If somebody, you don't have to have a sex change to be a transgendered person. I think we're getting way into the weeds on our.
No. I know where this is headed. So my thing is this, okay? You asked me, we're talking about sex or we're talking about gender.
Yeah.
What is it now? Now he's saying that you can get the same thing from a woman that you can get from a man, and I know that's baloney. So can you please tell me the difference between a man and a woman, particularly their characteristics, how they behave? What is the difference between the two? I'm just curious.
Well, that's going to vary tremendously culturally. That's going to vary. I mean, what it boils down to ultimately, what is the difference between a man and a woman is what that person is going to say that they are. If someone's like, identifies as a man or a woman, and these terms are loaded with meaning. But when we talk about things like masculine and feminine characteristics, I mean, these are determined by cultures.
I knew it. So the reason why you're arguing the way you're arguing is because you believe that if a person says that there's something, that means that they're, in other words, if I start going around saying respect me as a woman, you're going to start calling me, she-man, right? You're going to start calling me, that I'm a woman, even though I walk like a man, talk like a man, act like a man, and I have the male genitalia. You're going to sit here and you're going to tell me that I'm a woman because I said I'm a woman?
But what's a man walk like or talk like? I've trained with female MMA fighters. I've served with female combat veteran soldiers. What's a man walk like?
What's the difference between a male lion and a female lion?
A male lion and a female lion. When we're talking about, well, I mean, I'm not a zoologist, but you can look at the male lions, got the big poofy mane things. The female lions tend to be more aggressive, do more of the hunting. The guys tend to rest a lot more.
Who defends the pride?
That depends on the situation. If the male lion's not around and the hyenas come in for those little lion cubs, those lionesses are going to represent. I mean, I've watched a National Geographic documentary or two in my day.
Who is the leader?
Let me get in here for a second, because I think we might end up going down a rabbit trail. We might not want to go down that full rabbit trail, but let's get back over to the top of the rabbit hole and let's just let me ask you this. Let me just find out, I'm out of curiosity, what are your political affiliations, and have you made a change in your political beliefs between, say, 2016 or 2012, we can go back to 2012 and today, since all of you are old enough to probably have voted both of those times. So 2012 to today, are you still, say, leaning to the right, leaning to the left? Are you in the middle? Where were you then and where are you now? And if you have a reason for the change, I'd love to hear that.
So before I answer that, may I just ask one clarifying question to G-Man?
Sure.
Okay.
You take us back into the rabbit hole.
I really want to get an answer on this. What traits can you identify that I am missing that a man did not provide me?
Some of it is masculinity. Because if you're sitting here telling me that it's okay for 4 women to raise you and you don't have no male, and you don't have a desire for male companionship or a father figure in your life, I would say masculinity. Testosterone would be another one if you ask me. If I went to a gym with you, I think you would be fine with going with 4 women picking up 10-pound dumbbells. At some point, you're going to be like, I need somebody to give me some help picking up. So many assumptions. Trying to bench press like 200 or 300 pounds. You know what I mean? It has to do with the things that men do. When men go through puberty and their body is going through changes that women are not going to understand. A lot of times men have to explain that to you. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of times you're going to be rejected in life, and a woman is going to give it to you from a woman's perspective. And then a man can explain that to you from a man's perspective. And I'll give you another one. When you're looking for a woman to be with, and she's rejecting you, and she doesn't like you, and you need advice on how to get her. Yes, a woman can give you advice from her perspective, but I can guarantee you this, I promise you this, you're going to need the male perspective if you expect to be in a successful relationship.
So, okay. Again,
or you're going to get used and played and dumped.
Okay, I'm going to have to, quote, puff my chest for the sake of this conversation just for a moment. I spent 3 years in Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I spent many years in a bar or in bad scenarios throughout high school, being able to defend myself physically, being able to hold my ground in most scenarios, in fact, scenarios where I was outnumbered. Additionally, I trained in strongman for 5 years. You can look videos of
me. Woman?
Huh?
With a woman?
No, with men.
No. You said that women could teach you all this stuff. I'm sure women taught you how to pick up 500 pounds and 1,000 pounds and all that other stuff.
Ethan, let me interject.
I'm sure he was. I think we're probably. I'm sure there were men around in Ethan's life.
Let me briefly interject, just specifically to the point G-Man just made. When I got out of the Army, I was a competitive powerlifter for about 3 years, and I trained under a number of great coaches. One of them was named Gracie Vanass. You can Google her. I watched Gracie bench close to 300 pounds, squat close to 500.
That's one woman.
I've seen
a lot of men
many.
do that.
I'm just saying it's not a male. No, there's not. First of all, there's not a lot of men. She could go into just about any commercial gym in the country and outlift all the men. But the point is that these are not male characteristics that you're describing. Being able to pick up heavy things, liking to lift weights.
Were you born stronger than your sister?
I don't have sisters. I was born stronger than my little brother.
Are men born stronger than women? Yes or no?
If we're talking about
on average, they are. You can't deny that.
Yeah,
on average, for sure.
Absolutely.
Their frames are bigger. They've got better oxygen production. There's all kinds of stuff going on in their bodies.
You can look at things like bone density. You can look at joint size, all that kind of stuff.
You have to be honest about that. I mean, seriously.
But that doesn't have anything to do with
one of the problems that I have with this conversation is that okay, how can I do this without? I'm going to need to spend 10 seconds on science. All right. The atheist community will always talk about science and how we learned this from nature and how we learned that from nature. One of the things we are not learning from nature is that the man doesn't lead. Okay, nature is teaching us that the male animal is the one that leads. The males are the ones fighting each other for the right to mate with the female. But if you talk to human beings today, you know, there's no need to do that no more. You know what I mean? You could be just like a woman and be just fine. You know what I mean? And that's why I have. Is that Vekl? Please let that be Vekl.
It's just not a good argument. If you're going to talk about the animal kingdom, I mean, you can look at, you know, animals like bonobos or spotted hyenas or, you know, orcas or bees, where there's the female leading the tribe, leading the hive, leading the pack, whatever you want to call it. Again, even in the animal kingdom, even in science, you just don't see what you're talking about, G-Man. And you don't see it.
Let's go back. Let's get away from this a little bit.
But you also see women leading. You see it. You see it all.
No, I think we can, let's just agree to disagree for a second there, and let's get away from that for just a second, because I wanted to also say hi to Vekl. And Vekl's been on here a few times. He's another Christian. So Vekl, you want to?
Hello.
Hey, Vekl, when somebody breaks in your home, man, hide underneath your bed and let the wife and the baby take care of you, man, because you're all equals. You know what I mean?
Wait, sis, if somebody, so you're talking about the differences between men and women, right? That's the conversation.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm sorry, guys, but this is funny to me. Go ahead, Vekl.
Real quick, G-Man. All right. What trait do you have that I am missing, since I was raised by women and you were raised by a, quote, you know, a strong male lead? What trait do you have that I don't? Is it strength? Because I'm pretty sure I can outlift you at the gym. I've also got multiple years of Muay Thai training and self-defense. I'm also a very compassionate human. So what specific trait do you have that I am missing out on? Because I
then Vekl, also answer the difference between a man and a woman too. I want to hear your answer for that one.
Can you just answer this, please? What trait do you have that I am incapable or I do not have because I was raised by 4 women? Can you please answer that question?
Can't believe I'm having this conversation. Vekl, you there, Vekl?
I don't think G-Man hears you, Ethan.
I would say, let's just say, I mean, I honestly think that you guys you've had enough male influences, female influences, I'm sure, in your life on both ends, whether or not you're raised in the house with them or you've got something else. All of you are decent people in different ways. You've all got different kind of values and traits. But I don't think G-Man's going to find anything about you that I don't think he's going to find anything about you that, you know, with respect to being a male.
So based on, if he's not able to find anything, then based on just us 2 alone, I would say his argument doesn't hold merit.
Okay, Ashley, I apologize, Ashley, for saying this, but scientifically speaking, this is how the words are pronounced. So I apologize about this. Ethan, you have a penis, don't you, Ethan?
Yes.
What does that make you if you have a penis? Come on.
From my understanding of sex, it would make me a male.
Okay, in biology, it would call you a male, right? If a person has a vagina, what does that make them? According to biology.
From my understanding, and I recognize that I am woefully undereducated when it comes to sex and gender, I believe it would make them a woman.
Okay, I know it would make them a woman. I mean, no disrespect. When you were born, you came out of a woman's womb, right? Are you sure about that you came out of a woman's womb?
So I get, G-Man, you're not answering my question though. You're now throwing more, but can you just answer?
Well, let's go back. Let's just skip away from this just for a second, because I feel like this could get kind of heated, and I don't really want to go.
Ashley, I'll be quiet.
No, it's I'd rather I think it'd be interesting just because we're coming from different backgrounds and perspectives, and even we've got 3 Christians and 2 atheists in here, and I'm curious about everyone's political leanings and if they've changed since 2012. Honestly, I just really want to know that, because I think that would be super interesting.
We can do that too, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just caught the tail end of what you said, SJ, because I had to step away, taking care of my daughter.
We're trying to find out the difference between a man and a woman.
No, I don't want to do that. We've already got that. We got that. You even, I mean, it's yeah, we're good with that. But as far as, like, for example, in 2012, were you conservative? Were you Republican? Were you liberal Democrat? Were you a libertarian? Where were you in 2012? And then where are you today? And have you changed? And if you have changed, what would you give the reasons for that change?
This is for anyone?
Yeah, for any of you guys.
All right.
Oh, good.
No, sorry. Okay, so I was a Republican my entire life until 2016. I did support Donald Trump in the beginning, and then I realized the more I heard him speak, the more I couldn't stand him. And as I continued to apply critical thinking to my own views, I realized, in my opinion, I was taking the wrong approach. I was not being a compassionate and understanding human being. And I feel my thought process, moved more progressively. And I definitely no longer align myself with the Republican Party. I do hold more liberal views, but I wouldn't say I align with the Democratic Party either, because I think the idea of a two-party system is ridiculous. And I think it goes to contribute to all the problems we're having. For instance, in some of the things G-Man has said, like constantly pitting man versus woman, Republican versus Democrat, like we keep putting people in these two boxes. And I don't agree with that. We need to take a more open approach and address the issues policy by policy and have more options available.
It's fair. 3 parties would be ideal.
Yes.
An independent party that actually speaks to exactly what I care about.
I don't think you're going to be able to get away from. I don't think you're going to be able to get away from any type of sectionalism or tribalism in some way, shape, or form. I mean, because there are distinctions between different mindsets and different groups. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can get away from that. And of course, there's pros and cons in both sides and stuff like that. I know me personally, I believe that as a black man, I think I've always held some conservative views, but I've been hoodwinked and programmed to vote Democrat for so many years. And we can go into a whole historical discussion about how that came to be. But I today, since I guess I've always been kind of conservative at heart, but didn't really know what that meant. But now I hold an even more so now today since 2012 because of Obama's policies and his ideas and stuff like that. And even back then, I wasn't really politically minded until 2015, till late 2015. But prior to that, I was definitely against Obama's policies, so on and so forth. I saw him as a non-Christian person. His policies were against Christianity, against a lot of people's morals, moral views. And of course, now today, if people don't know already now, I do support Trump. I voted for him 2016. I'll vote for him again. And yeah, that's where I am right now. I don't know if that's a question, but go ahead.
Yeah, so when I went to high school, and right around the time when I graduated, I would say I graduated in 94, so I was up until 1999, I think I was Democratic in my thinking. You know what I mean? When I became a Christian in 2000, I was still Democratic, but I would say around 2002, 2003, I embraced the Republican form of thinking. And since 2008, I don't really trust the Democrats or the Republicans. That doesn't mean I want a third party. I think that the government lies, and it doesn't matter if it's a person's a Democrat, or Republican, independent. It doesn't matter if they're a communist. It doesn't matter if they're a socialist. It doesn't matter what they are. They all lie. So as a Christian, to be blunt, I'm just waiting for Christ to return, because I know when he returns, that's when things are going to be run properly. the way our government is presently structured, whoever has the most money is pretty much going to run the place. You know what I mean? All these rich corporations are lobbying for this to be done and for this to be done, and a little person like me is the one that is suffering. So again, I'm just waiting for Jesus to return because his policies are the best, in my opinion.
Okay. See, I think this is interesting. What about Ken?
Real quick.
So, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go, please.
So I'm actually a federal employee, so I have to kind of tiptoe around politics a little bit. I can't speak toward any specific candidates or endorse anybody, kind of a thing. But I tend to lean left. I think that it's a good idea to provide assistance to people in low-income communities and to protect entitlements like Social Security. I'm in favor of things like increasing the minimum wage, improving unemployment benefits, making sure that people can join unions if they want to, having equal pay for equal work, regardless of sex or gender. So these things all would make me a liberal today. Or if you take us back to the 1950s, that would make me an Eisenhower Republican. So, I don't know what I am, but I tend to lean left in today's climate.
Interesting. See, I just find this really fascinating. That's what I wanted to get into, because I feel like it seems like if you're more religious or Christian right here in this group, you're leaning a little more to the right, and if to the other end, you're leaning a little bit more to the left. Does that seem fair?
Statistically, that seems to be the case.
Yeah.
I know I did a little online exam, a little survey that I think is free for anybody can do it. It takes only maybe 2 minutes to do. And it said that I'm more centrist left, according to the thing. I said, let me do this again. And I did it twice and the same result came up. So I have some ideas that seem that I think a lot of liberals would agree with. So I don't know. It's really strange.
Vekl spoke to
about Black Lives Matter. So, can we talk about Black Lives Matter? Because I would love to get my opinion about that.
So real quick, I have to jump off video, but if you give me like 3 to 4 minutes, I can jump back on audio only. Would that be okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sure.
I would be interested to hear your opinion on Black Lives Matter. We haven't talked about that.
Do not get me started on that group.
Oh yeah, I don't support it.
It's perfect having two black men to tell me because I of course think Black lives do matter. I mean, that's like a given, and I hate police brutality. That's also a given.
Do not get me started. I'm warning you. I'm warning you. Do not get me started. You're gonna have a lot of people hating you on this channel, SJ, if I open my mouth about that group.
Well, I'm gonna talk about it. Okay, so I don't support Black Lives Matter. I definitely believe that police brutality against African Americans need to stop. Okay, and I believe that we need to have equal rights here in the United States. Totally understand it. Totally get that. However, in my opinion, Black Lives Matter is nothing more than a Trojan horse to try to force everybody to stop offending everybody, which is impossible. There's never going to be a time in history where we're going to be able to not offend nobody. Like, for example, with Black Lives Matter, they want to take down these white images of Jesus. Oh, we got to stop offending black people. You know what I mean? Let's take down, what is it? The Confederate flag. Let's take this down. Let's take this down. Stop offending black people in this country. Well, that's going to apply also to Muslims. That's going to apply to Buddhists. That's going to apply to New Agers. That's going to apply to atheists. That's going to apply to everybody out there. Pretty soon, all you're going to have is a bunch of houses with no designs on it or nothing like that, because everything offends everybody. You know what I mean? And there's a Trojan horse to get everybody to accept a particular lifestyle, and that's not going to happen. I believe Black Lives Matter isn't really what it says it is. I believe that it's just meant to be a Trojan horse to get us to accept certain things that we are never going to accept.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. You have that view. I was curious to know, because I haven't been bringing that up because I didn't know where everybody stands. So I know it's a hot button political issue right now.
Let's be honest, SJ. You didn't want to bring it up because you're a white person and you're afraid that some silly limp-wristed white liberal who just hates themselves and feel that they have all this kind of white privilege is going to try to accuse you of being a racist, all because you choose to speak on this issue, even though we know that you're not a racist. But the problem is we got a lot of people on the left, especially with this cancel culture now, who just want to jump at any given opportunity to accuse somebody of being a racist or an Uncle Tom like myself, you know, or G-Man, just because we speak the truth about these things. Okay. Is there racism in this country? Yes. Is there racism in this world? Yes. But there's no systemic racism like we saw prior to the 60s or you know, prior to that. Okay. We don't see that anymore. But see, what they want to do now is they want to shove this down everybody's throat. White people can't say the word black without being accused of being a racist. Okay. For crying out loud, even back in 2016, there was an article about a group called PETA, I think it was. And they wanted to try to make everybody believe that milk by itself, just milk, is a symbol of white supremacy. So if you're a white person and you're caught going to Walmart buying a jug of milk, it's probably because you are a white supremacist. And I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. There was an article about this. It popped up twice, as a matter of fact, under this, well, of course, conveniently under this current administration. You know, so everybody on the left, mostly people on the left, I haven't seen it done on the right, but I'm sure there might be. But it's mostly done on the left. Everybody's got to lift the race card, both black and white, doesn't matter. Okay. You can't say this, you can't do that anymore because of something you said 10 or 15 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, you're a pedophile, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're Islamophobe, xenophobe, you're all this kind of ist. And the people that are being attacked the most, I don't care who has a problem with what I'm about to say right now. You got a problem, come in here and have a discussion with me. But right now, it seems to me that the people that are having the most persecution right now are white men. White men are heavily criticized and attacked by people on the left. White men can't say anything. They can't have an opinion. They can't say anything. They can't speak. Why? Because we got some silly limp-wristed white liberal and some whiny black liberal who's just going to cry and lift up the race card every time a white person, particularly white straight men, has something to say. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry, man. I got
actually. Okay. I'll be honest. I agree with you on all of this. So I agree with you. I feel like it's gone. I feel like the initial movement. I feel like a bunch of other people jumped in there, who actually have Marxist beliefs. The women who are running BlackLivesMatter.com are Marxists. They put it on their website. They didn't put it on their website. They put it in videos in 2015 that was out in the New York Post. And they said they're not just Marxists, they're trained Marxists. And so they have an agenda that goes way beyond what I think the everyday black person or white person even realizes.
And there's one more thing I want to say about this too. Why is it okay for black people to talk about black nationalism, but white people can't do the same thing? You know what I mean? Because they have issues in their hold on a minute. I'm saying this is a black man, and then you can say whatever you want. Okay? One of the things that I find kind of odd, and Vekl just briefly touched on this, and I know that Cher agreed with Vekl, that it's okay for black people to talk about black nationalism and what's going on in our community, but white people can't do it. But when I say white people, I don't like saying that. Caucasian people or Europeans or whatever can't necessarily.
Ethan, you got a little background noise.
Ethan, you got
sorry.
Yeah, that they can't express what's going on in their group or their nationality or whatever. You know what I mean? And to prove this, I watched a YouTube video where I watched a woman talk about what Caucasian or Europeans have brought to the table in terms of like politics, inventions, and things like that. And I was finding myself getting offended. How dare this person talk about how they invented this and how they did that? And I was the one with the problem, not them, because they didn't say anything that was actually wrong. There was nothing wrong with them remembering their leaders. If we can remember Martin Luther King, then Caucasians should be able to remember their inspirational leaders. If we can sit there and remember our time during the civil rights movement, then Caucasian people should be able to remember the times that they struggled and how they were liberated from certain things. You know what I mean? So this whole Black Lives Matter is just baloney and stupid. You know what I mean? And it's just used, as I said before, as a Trojan horse to try to get us to accept things that I am not going to accept, and I don't care what you call it. You know what I mean? So I just want to stop there because I know Kenneth is going to be talking forever when his turn comes.
I got a lot more to say.
I promise. I don't know. I'm not going to talk forever. It's weird because we're talking on something like Black Lives Matter. I look like I was built in the lab in Germany in like 1938. So I'm like the last person anybody wants to hear talking about Black Lives Matter. But
why is that?
It's just.
Why is that? Because you're uneducated or because you're white?
Because it's not my movement necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Like the thing is, in our country, we've look. I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking.
I'm sorry, Ken. I won't interrupt you, but I just wanted to point out real quick.
I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm just going to interrupt.
What you're doing is you're proving my point, though. But go ahead.
Maybe I'm not. You may have to wait and hear what I have to say before you jump to that conclusion.
You already did. Go ahead.
So the white folks have had the mic for an awful long time in the United States. I don't think that there's any objection that any reasonable person would have to anybody else grabbing the mic and speaking their mind about issues affecting their communities. If somebody wants to say Black Lives Matter, I don't see that as being a controversial thing to say at all. I think there's a problem where an organization and a larger movement sometimes get conflated with one another. I don't know enough about Black Lives Matter as an organization to speak on it or have much of an opinion. But I can say, living here in Chicago, and I live in Chicago proper, I'm not out in the suburbs. It seems to me that Black Lives Matter has been an extremely positive thing. It was the same when I lived in New York when Eric Garner was killed. There was marches in the street. There were people demonstrating. There were people who'd been clearly feeling an awful lot of pent up frustration for quite some time, voicing that frustration. And I don't see where the problem in any of that is. What Vekl said, what G-Man said, was really, really heavy on hyperbole and really, really light on data. So to me, I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm respecting where they're coming from, but saying everybody on the left does this and everybody at Black Lives Matter is trying to Trojan horse all this other stuff in. This sounds like hysterical. This sounds like hysterical speech to me, not
hyperbole
debate.
Really,
that's what I said.
Yeah. You hyperbole. That is absolutely astounding, Ken. I mean, there's all kinds of video and printed documented evidence of this type of Marxist attitude and behavior on the part of not only just the Black Lives Matter group, but even
you say this type. What do you mean? Can you clarify?
Okay. Wait. First of all, what part did I say that you consider to be hyperbole?
Well, maybe I'm confused. So as you clarify here, you said this type of Marxist behavior.
That or you don't know what hyperbole means? Because
I'm just asking you because as you're going on, you said this type of Marxist stuff.
I'm trying to figure out. No, sir. You said hyperbole. That's a very strong accusation there. What you're saying is that a lot of what we're saying, that G-Man and I are saying regarding Black Lives Matter, you said it was hyperbole, meaning that there's no real validity to it, that it's mostly conjecture or an exaggeration of some sort. So what I want you to point out is, what did you hear me say? But you said hyperbole. That's a specific word.
I did use the word hyperbole. I did use the word hyperbole.
Can you point? Hold on a second, bro. Can you point something out to me, to the audience? What did G-Man or I say specifically in regards to Black Lives Matter that was hyperbole?
When you say things like everybody on the left thinks XYZ, or everybody within a movement is trying to spread any particular idea. Everybody at Black Lives Matter is trying to produce a Marxist ideology.
Okay, you didn't listen. You didn't listen to
ideas. Well, a moment ago, I asked you if you would clarify, and you started going off and grandstanding about hyperbole.
That's okay. That's what clarification is a good thing. So because
that's why I asked you to do it.
I'm not saying that you deliberately try to twist my words, but maybe.
No, I asked you to clarify, which is kind of the opposite of twisting your words.
Well, when you hear G-Man and I say that there's Marxism, there's some Marxist base to it. We're talking about there's video footage and audio footage of Black Lives Matters individuals who are admitting that they were trained by Marxist individuals, and they go by under Marxist ideology. Okay, sure. Even if you go to their website, you can see some of the stuff that that's part of their agenda.
Whose agenda? Those individuals or the larger movement?
The organization known as Black Lives Matter. Now let me just put on a thing. Neither G-Man or I are against Black Lives. Okay, when we say we don't support the group called Black Lives Matter, but we do believe that Black Lives Matter. Okay, that's why we strongly speak against the violent shootings that's been going on in Chicago, and in Baltimore and Detroit and LA and New York City and all these other type of things. So when we talk about Black Lives Matter, we're not talking about George Floyd and Rashad Brooks and all this other stuff. No, we're talking about people like Tyshawn Lee and little 9-year-old kid who was shot point blank in the back of the head by another black man. And we're speaking about those kinds of things that we don't see people like Black Lives Matter speaking up or protesting in the streets about. Seems like the only time we hear from those folks is every 4 years, whenever they got a white man who's running for office. He's a racist. He's a racist.
Well, I can only speak to when I lived in New York and Obama was president and Eric Garner was killed. They took to the streets. There were people protesting the Obama administration. There are people talking about how Eric Holder wasn't doing enough for the Black community. I heard all that when I lived in West Harlem. I heard all that.
I'm from Harlem, so
all right. I lived on St. Nicholas in 128th. So the whole thing with what you just said, you're talking about individuals who are, unnamed. I'm familiar with the fact that there are videos out there of people from Black Lives Matter who have said some things that align perfectly with what you're saying, that there's Marxist ideologies and all of that. It conceded 100%, right? But I recently saw a video of a guy who was a regional organizer for Bernie Sanders saying some really wild out there Marxist stuff, advocating for violence. But that guy's not the Sanders campaign. That's just some wacky guy who got a job working for the Sanders campaign. So to me, when people, and again, maybe I just don't know enough about Black Lives Matter as an organization, but when I hear something like, we got people on video who are affiliated with Black Lives Matter saying XYZ, therefore Black Lives Matter is XYZ, that doesn't seem to add up to me.
Well, again, see, here's the problem. And even people on the side chat, again, what they want to do is they want to take bits and pieces of what you say and try to twist things around. G-Man and I are going to say this again. Well, I don't want to speak totally for G-Man, but I know he shares the same sentiment. Do Black Lives Matter? Yes, of course they do. That's why we speak against the violence that's been going on in the black on black violence, okay, that go on in places like Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, so on and so forth, okay? But what we do not support is the organization that is under that term, Black Lives Matter, okay?
Yeah.
Now we got people in the side chat who are continuously being dishonest, and that's fine because trolls are going to troll. But we have it here on tape. Both G-Man and I are both saying this over and over again. We do not support Black Lives Matter, the group, the organization. Okay,
right.
We support Black lives though, because Black lives matter as much as white lives, as much as Asian lives. Oh, somebody's offended now because I said all lives matter.
White doesn't have any intrinsic meaning, though.
Somebody's offended. Let
me say this, though. I also said this to Kenneth. I said that too many times today, Caucasian people are afraid to talk about their nationality and their heroes and their fingerprint that they have put into society because they're afraid of offending other people. And that should not be the case. All right. Black people are happy for what Martin Luther King did, Malcolm X, what he did, Harriet Tubman, and people like that. We can talk about how these three people have impacted our lives, even though we might disagree on their religious affiliation or whatever, but we necessarily appreciate what they did, and how they influenced slavery or the civil rights movement or whatever, right? And there's other people as well, right? I don't see why Caucasian people can't do the same thing. You said they had the mic for a long time. Well, they should keep the mic too. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with them saying that President so-and-so did a lot for our community, opened up businesses, made it possible for a lot of us to buy houses. There's nothing wrong with them saying that if we go deep enough in our history, whether you be Irish or Russian or whatever, that so-and-so made it possible for my generation of family members or the generation of people at that particular time to be able to travel to so-and-so or to do this or to liberate their people or something like that. There's nothing wrong with them doing that.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with them talking about their inventions. There's nothing wrong with them talking about the nonprofit organizations that they have started or how they created schools or colleges or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It becomes a problem when it becomes oppressive. That's when it becomes a problem. But there is nothing wrong with them having their heroes and talking about how it helped them in their society. You know what I mean? Black Lives Matter prevents you from doing that.
I think you and I might be able to reach a point of agreement here. I want to really try. So I think we're about to agree on a whole lot more than we disagree about on this point. So I would agree that I don't think there's anything wrong with white folks like you're describing saying, look at what this great white person did in the back. We should think that that's a cool thing that that guy did. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that and I agree with you that I think that there's a very, very loud, very, very vocal sort of minority of people that are saying, nah, you can't say that, George Washington did good stuff because he had slaves and that not cool. So George Washington's canceled. Like, I understand that there are people who are talking like that, but I think that most reasonable people, and I think most people in the United States fall into this giant category of kind of middle of the road people that agree about more than they disagree about. I think most people would say, yeah, white guys, if you want to celebrate George Washington, that's cool, but try to take like a big picture, wide angle lens view of him, talk about the good and talk about the bad. Don't idolize these people because they got skeletons in their closet, and they did harmful things and they did good things. So let's just be honest about it. Now you can't celebrate them, but let's be honest about it.
Wait a minute, I'm a little confused here. Because I celebrate the 4th of July. I understand the significance of it. I don't have an issue with George Washington owning slaves, you know what I mean? Or necessarily being like the first president of the United States and him helping us win a Revolutionary War.
You don't have an issue with George Washington owning slaves?
Just hear me out a minute. Just hear me out a minute. I didn't mean it like that in the sense that he had slaves. I have an issue. I don't have an issue. I believe that George Washington did more good. In other words, I believe that he did more good than he did wrong. You know what I mean?
We agree.
You know what I mean? So Caucasian people ain't the only people doing that. I'll talk about George Washington. He helped us win the Revolutionary War. I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey. I can talk about how they went up Communipaw Avenue. I can talk about how they've been to certain places in Jersey City in order to to win some battles or whatever. I can talk about those things. You know what I mean? I can talk about the Underground Railroad also. What street is that? That's a Communipaw, and then that's I think that's a Grand.
Harriet Tubman. Are you talking about people at the Underground Railroad?
Yeah, Harriet Tubman, and I know the specific streets. I think it's in the Junction. There are several houses that was used for the Underground Railroad in Jersey City, New Jersey. I can talk about those things, but you can too, because there's a lot of Caucasian people who was against slavery back then that can say that, that so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. It ain't about whether or not, we agree with their good or their bad or whatever. If this person has positively influenced you to impact our society in a positive way, then there's nothing wrong with you speaking up about that person, as long as you're realistic about everything that they did in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Black Lives Matter is ridiculous, and I'm gonna tell you why. Why are we taking down white statues of Jesus? What has a white statue of Jesus done to me?
Let me ask you this, just as a clarifying point, because is that Black Lives Matter, or was that Sean King writing a thing to try to stay relevant?
Sean King, I like that guy. Sean King, aka Talcum X.
Yeah, because I saw
he's not quoting nobody, and if
he's the white guy who thinks he's black, like Rachel Dolezal. Okay, go ahead.
So what Vekl's saying,
white statues of Jesus ain't bothering me. Neither is the Confederate flag.
I saw the article getting circulated by people that I know who are like super far left, people, and it was just this Sean King thing, and some people on the left being like, yeah, tear down white Jesus. I didn't see that being a thing that gained traction with like mainstream Black Lives Matter. It seemed to be a thing that a lot of folks, even within Black Lives Matter, looked at as being a distraction.
The Hebrew Israelites and groups like that are the ones that's probably, or like Muslims maybe, are the ones that are probably like, yes, they're taking down white Jesus. But if you're a Bible believing Christian, and we pretty much don't give a hoot how Jesus looked, we only care about his blood. And those statues don't really mean a whole lot to us. We think it's idolatry to begin with. So
right.
Can
I piggyback off of that, G-Man?
Sure.
Again, yeah, like you said, true students of the Bible are not going to say, "Oh man, you're tearing down an image of Kenny Loggins here. That's our Jesus." No. I mean, come on now. Everybody knows that Jesus may not have, mostly did not look like that. Okay, but the problem is though, that's where it starts though. Okay, you want to talk about hyperbole being used. Okay, well, I say that them destroying the white Jesus statues and then saying, well, it's just the white images of Jesus. We don't care if it's a black image of Jesus. No. That's an hyperbole right there, because that's where it's going to start. It's going to start with them using an excuse to tear down Christian, images that represent, images from the Bible. But then if you can, again, it's pretty much you're giving them an inch, they take a mile type of thing. Because what's going to happen next is then they're going to start invading churches. I mean, we already saw the example of Troy, New York, as a matter of fact, not too far from where I am, okay, of a Black Lives Matter unit going into that congregation, harassing them, right? And then one of my own relatives sent me, well, here's the reason why they harassed those people in their church. They sent me a link to their website, to the church's website, and and to focus on a raffle for a free RF-15. Wait, did I say that? Yeah, a free rifle, right? And I'm asking, like, wait, that's the reason that Black Lives Matter approached this church? Really? No, of course not. Of course not.
The church was having a raffle for an AR-15?
Yeah.
Did I hear that right? Just
Yeah.
Make sure I didn't hear something.
I would sure. I signed me up, man. I would love to join that church. You kidding me? But that was my sister-in-law's sorry excuse for trying to defend why Black Lives Matter was attacking, confronting those people at that church in New York State. But we don't really know it because that didn't seem to line up with what's in the video. But in the video, we can see them being told to leave the congregation, right? But they're leaving hesitantly, right? They're like, in the bishop's face or in the pastor's face, cursing and swearing at him. One of them is all in his face. Yeah, do something. I want you to do something. Now, wait a minute. Wait. What problem do they have with a church? Like, do they have any, does this unit of Black Lives Matter have any evidence that this congregation was preaching anything racist or promoting what the cop did to George Floyd or anything of the sort? No, they don't. So what the heck was Black Lives Matter doing in that church in New York State? Why were they there? Why were they?
Who knows? It's hard to speak on that when, I can't speak for Kenneth when we don't necessarily have all the information on it.
Okay, right. And CNN and all these other mainstream media outlets that favor the left, that favor the Democratic Party, if Black Lives Matter was the one who agitated the attacks over there, you're not gonna hear about it. Of course not. And just like you're not going to hear about guys like Tony Timpa. Anybody here knows who that was?
Yep, I know who Tony Timpa was.
Okay. The only reason, and I guarantee you, Ken, the reason why you heard of Tony Timpa is probably because of the onslaught of conservatives bringing him up, not because people on the left brought it up.
I heard. You know who Coleman Hughes is?
Yes, I do.
I heard Coleman Hughes bringing him up.
Well, exactly, but he's not really on the left either.
He would say he is, but I know what you're saying. I know that he has
more centrist.
It's an interesting thing because it's an interesting thing because I think that a lot of folks don't know just how strong and how sort of mainstream the conservative Black community really is. And you touched on this earlier, Vekl, this idea that you felt like there'd been some, sort of you've been sold a false bill of goods by the Democratic Party, and I know that there aren't plenty of people who feel that way. The thing that I keep returning to in my head here as you're speaking, because I'm listening, I'm respecting where you guys are coming from. I understand that there are bad actors and that there are people that are within the, movements like Black Lives Matter who would love to see every white Jesus get torn down and then take every liberty that comes, thereafter. I have a hard time believing that the goal of most people who are out marching saying Black Lives Matter is anything but taking issues like police brutality seriously and just wanting Black people and white people in the United States to be treated fairly and equally. I think that seems to be the goal that most people have. And it seems to me that Black Lives Matter gets used as this wedge to try to divide people. And that seems to me to be a problem. Go ahead.
But why is that the case? I don't think that's anything being propagated by the people on the right, though. I mean, we see all kinds of examples. I mean, for crying out loud, what were they preaching in the streets of Chicago not too long ago? Pigs in a blanket, frying like bacon. When do we want dead cops? When do we want it? Now. I was
walking my dog yesterday and someone had spray painted ACAB on the sidewalk real big by where I know a police officer in our neighborhood lives. And this is, but I think
that's messed up.
Well, I agree. Ken, let me just jump in real quick because you said you repeat something that I often agree with, and I need to stress on that too, so I don't get misunderstood. And I think G-Man holds the same position. Within the group called Black Lives Matter, within the organization, and I think I speak for G-Man. G-Man, correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe that there within that group, there are people in that organization who may not really know what the true agenda is according to their website is. And they sincerely believe in civil rights. They sincerely want to fight against police brutality and hold police accountable, so on and so forth. I believe that. Okay. But that's that again, if that's what the main group is agenda is for some sort of Marxist activity to be performed throughout the United States and maybe even throughout the world, I don't care how many sincere people are part of that group. I still don't want to be a part of it. It's the same.
I think that's a fair point.
With the Catholic Church, okay, Catholics profess to be Christian and they may be fighting against abortion, but can I join a ministry that's that's funded by a Catholic church? Me personally, I would say no. That's just my opinion.
I respect where you're coming from. The thing that you said, one of the things that you said that stood out to me was you said you don't see people on the right throwing out the inflammatory rhetoric in the same way that you see from folks on the left, if I understood you correctly. And it just struck me. I was in my head, I was going, I think that to a certain extent, we're probably all guilty of it. When I hear people on the left say something like all cops are bad, that strikes me very, very similarly as hearing somebody say something like Black Lives Matter is bogus. And I understand that there's nuance here, but it strikes me as I've had conversations with people who are chanting like all cops are bad. And when I get into the one-on-one, when in the group, it's just like, F all the police. But when you talk to one-on-one, it tends to be more like, well, like I understand there's some good cops out there, but I'm trying to speak to a larger issue here. And I'm trying to talk about, there's police brutality. And I just want it to stop. I just want people to get treated with some dignity and respect. And then it's the same thing when I talk to folks on the right who are like, yeah, Black Lives Matter is, a Marxist organization. It's a bunch of garbage. And then I talk to them and I'm like, yeah, but you understand, like people are trying to just get some, equality here, right? And then it's like, well, yeah, and I want that too. So it seems to me that the loudest voices tend to be the ones that make the least amount of sense. And it's when you start to have those one-on-one conversations that you see how reasonable most people ultimately are.
How do you feel about drug dealers being Black Lives Matter?
What do you mean?
I want to go, you guys, I want to go maybe about 5 more minutes just because I'm running past the dinner.
We haven't even heard your voice, Ashley. Why don't you do some talking?
Yeah, Ashley.
Oh, no, I agree with you guys.
Be careful,
I'm actually
don't want to have the race card lifted on you.
I'm glad we brought this up because it was one of those topics that I thought to myself, I don't know what anyone's views are and it could go the wrong way. But it sounds like we actually all have a lot of agreement on this.
Oh, yeah, you definitely do, yeah.
Ashley and I look like we were made in the same lab. That's the thing. It's like
So I think the one thing I want to add.
Ashley is my sister and Vekl's sister too. So.
Sister in Christ.
That's right. That's our family.
So I think the one thing I want to add is I've heard a lot of what I would equate to like fear mongering in this conversation. And jumping back a few minutes, particular when I think it was UV was talking about how like white men can't say anything. I hear this constantly, like the white men can never critique anyone or can't get away with saying anything without getting in trouble. I am around a lot of liberal people on a daily basis, and I engage with a lot of liberals, and I have gotten in trouble exactly 0 times. And I tackle some controversial topics, and I make mistakes on pronouns, but I've never found these extreme situations that the right constantly talks about of the left just lashing out over these small mistakes. So I think we need to find a way to stop. I think we need to find a way to stop like painting with such a broad brush or putting people into 2 boxes and just evaluating each circumstance in and of itself, or try and get information from more than one news source. Because as you can see, we just found places of agreement. Now, if we were not engaging in this conversation, we would have found those places. You guys most likely would have painted us as just those liberal, crazy atheists, and we could have painted you as those right-wing Christians who don't listen to anything. But at the end of the day, all of us all of us have a lot more in common than we realize. So I just think we need to stop putting people under the umbrella, or putting people under left and right.
I want to respond to that real quick. All right. Number one, notice that neither G-Man or myself, okay, have accused you or Ken, even though you guys, favor more towards the liberal, spectrum. Neither one of us has accused you of these things that we're speaking about regarding Black Lives Matter. Okay,
I know.
So when you say things like that, I think you're kind of guilty of asserting that we're saying the same thing, that we're doing the same thing that you're accusing people of doing. When we're speaking generative in a generic fashion, and we're speaking about what we see in the newspapers, on the internet, and maybe through other testimonies and stuff like that. But we're not speaking on any one particular individual. Now, if you want to talk about us speaking on any particular individuals, we can do that. But SJ is running out of time, so. But
no,
we're
I apologize if I misspoke.
Right.
I guess let me.
Right. I think G-Man and I are intelligent enough to take things with a grain of salt. Just because we bump into a liberal or even a person who identifies as a leftist, just because they may have a Black Lives Matter shirt, we're not going to assume that there's some sort of fascist or Marxist who just wants to take away our freedoms and stuff like that. They may be one of those individuals, as I said before, who may not even know about the Marxist agenda of Black Lives Matter, but they're just plain individuals who want to see equality, civil rights done amongst Black people and stuff like that, and may not know what the heck's going on with Black Lives Matter. Okay, so we're making that distinction there. That's all I want to point out.
I think we made some good points. I want to say something. We can go to 6:30, but Susan just threw in Christopher, because we're only going to go a few more minutes. We can probably do next week, this Wednesday, I'll do another free for all, and then Sunday we do another chat. But as far as Slam RN, she's got a good question here. What do you guys think of the couple in St. Louis having their rifle taken away and the lawyer has the gun?
Oh, I'm at the go.
Just the couple that was out, like the dude in the khakis with the polo and the AR.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Miami Vice. Like Miami Vice meets Charlie's Angels.
Looking like a
30 years later.
Cover of Grand Theft Auto 6 out there on his front porch.
Yeah. Right.
That's a good question.
Well, they had their Second Amendment's rights violated, so we could definitely say that.
I don't know. I remember the event, but were there weapons taken away by the state or something? Is that what?
No, I'll do a quick summary. So there's this big house in St. Louis. It's in a gated community. The Black Lives Matter group came through the gate. They broke through the gate and started marching in the community. And apparently they walked up on these people's porch. And according to them, they started pointing to bedrooms that they were going to take over. Now, this is according to the people. I haven't seen that part recorded. So the people, the husband and wife, brought out their guns. He had a rifle and they were kind of flinging their guns around a little bit. And she looked like she was aiming it towards the group at some points. And so anyway, that was all caught on film. But the Black Lives Matter group was kind of marching by them, but they also in some cases had arms too. And so these people felt threatened. There was a big group of people who were marching by. Then a few days later, what happens is a couple of people, the cops went into that couple's house and retrieved all of their weaponry.
Yep, and I'm afraid, I'm not blaming this on Joe Biden, but it seems to me that, and I think G-Man, I think most people who veer more towards the right will agree, you have a difference between a liberal and a leftist. And it seems to me the leftists are hijacking the Democratic Party right now. So if we get mush-mouthed Joe Biden in the office, he ain't going to be running things. He's going to have some one of his black candidates, or whoever it's going to be. It's going to be a black female probably. Either Keisha Bottoms from Atlanta, or what's her name? Maybe Don Lemon. I don't know, one of those two. Run for vice president. If that happens, well, who knows what's going to happen to this country if he gets in the office.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it would be safe to also say that the Republican Party has been hijacked by right-wing white nationalists and extremists. I think it's both sides.
No, I disagree with that. We've been hearing that for 4 years now, and we haven't sought a single ounce of evidence for that. Not a single ounce. Charlottesville, nope. S-hole countries, nope. Good people on both sides. Argument we hear all the time, nope. That's been debunked. Central Park 5, been debunked. New York State Fair Housing Act, been debunked.
So are you saying only and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me, that the left wing is being hijacked and essentially going downhill, but the right wings are not been hijacked, and
I'm saying the Democratic Party has been hijacked by a bunch of leftists. I mean, I can name them off the top of my head right now. All of them have very strong communist views, you know.
But in the same way, people who are paying attention to politics on the right can name their people on the right who they would say are doing the same thing. I think
my problem with the Republican Party, and I'm sorry, SJ, I'll stop talking. My problem with the Republican Party
is this is so good. This is really interesting to me.
There's a lot of apathy coming from the Republican Party. It seemed like a lot of cowardice and a lot of apathy. But we don't see apathy on the left. However, we do see, though, a strong desire to turn this country into a communist state. That's what I see.
I think that's an appeal to extremes. Like, I am only seeing that from such a small group of people that I think, again, you're painting this with a very broad brush.
My position is extreme, but not yours, though. So you're saying that there's a bunch of white supremacists or white nationalists who've hijacked the Republican Party, and you haven't given me an example yet. But
no. What I said was, couldn't it be argued that the opposite side has been hijacked as well? Both sides, in my opinion, are going to extremes.
I would say not rationally. I mean, if you want to argue that we have some cowards Republicans, but he's not a white nationalist.
You're right. He's maybe not a white nationalist, but I would argue that he is indeed not a very good human being, and is
so Obama was
bordering on racist. Well, why? Don't jump to Obama. We're talking.
I know. What about it? Okay. Well, but the Bible. Look, I'm a Christian. You're talking to a Christian here. Nobody voted for Trump because he was a saint. Okay, the man, for crying out loud, admitted years ago in an interview that he didn't know if he needed salvation, if he needed to be saved. So Christians don't talk like that. Okay, Christians do not say things like that. They don't say, "I don't know if I need to be saved." Okay, if you're truly filled with the Holy Spirit, you are going to have that revelation to you. That's why you become a Christian, because you have realized that you need salvation. You need to be saved. So I don't see Trump recanting that statement. So this is why I don't believe he's a Christian. However, what I don't see, and what I have not seen since he's been in office, okay, is him putting out any type of laws, legislations, or anything that was specifically detrimental towards the Black community or towards the church. I haven't seen any of those kinds of things. I see a lot of allegations on the part of the left, accusing him of being a racist. Oh, Charlottesville, asshole countries. I see a lot of those things being taken way out of context on the part of the left, but I haven't seen any policies or any type of evidence of him showing any type of disdain or any type of vitriol, as we see as much towards him, towards the Black community in particular. I haven't seen any of that.
So you don't, I guess, okay, let's say I can't point to a specific policy. Based on his Twitter alone and the way he speaks, would you not agree that he is indeed dividing this country more based on his language and specifically dividing the white and Black community?
I'll say two things. Number one, Trump is not a saint, first of all. And second of all, you hear me say, well, I know you're maybe not be familiar with me, but I personally think Trump has a really, really serious problem with foot and mouth disease. Okay, he has a really, really big mouth. I could blame part of it on him being from Queens, New York, because he's a tough guy. You know, he don't take no crap, so he'll say what he has to say, and people from New Jersey can relate to. But again, at the same time, he is the president of the United States, and he needs to take it easy with the stuff that comes out of his mouth.
Do you think, Vekl, like a serious question, do you think of loud men who can't stand criticism as being tough guys?
Say it again?
Do you think typically of loud men who can't handle criticism as being tough guys? Those I've met those kind of guys from Queens. They strike me as being very fragile.
We got to be more nuanced with what we're talking about with criticism. Okay. Sometimes the criticism that he receives is warranted. And when he responds in a stupid fashion, I do my face palm just like every other liberal does when he says something crazy. But I don't do that. But I don't think everything that's coming out of every response that he has to a liberal is stupid. Okay. Some of it is merited. Some of it deserves to be responded to. Some of it doesn't.
I hear where you're coming from. I hear this line sort of I've heard it a lot of people saying, well, Trump, he's a tough guy. He's like a man's man. He's out there. He doesn't take anything from anybody. But
yeah, but you're talking about in response to criticism, but we're talking about other things. He's tough in other areas too.
I can't think of a single way that he's tough.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Trump is, in my opinion, very much, and I'm sorry this is an ad hom, but he's a coward. Any person I've met that
coward.
Has that.
Wait a minute. We're talking about the man who the first president of the United States to actually take the time to go visit the North Korean dictator over there. Okay, we didn't see that with Obama. We didn't see that with Bill. I like little girls, Clinton. We didn't see that with any of the other presidents before him.
This is another thing. You said the thing about mush mouth Biden and I like little girls.
Yeah,
Clinton. This strikes me as being like,
if Biden was running for president, right? The guy doesn't even know what he's running for crying out loud.
I'm just saying, the point that I was going to make is it seems to me that the most honest thing that we can do with regards to people who we may be in opposition with is to try to steel man their positions and be charitable.
Okay.
It just going back to this idea that the rhetoric and it's on all sides needs to be toned. I don't think it's productive when people
That's true.
Disparage, Trump in certain kinds of ways either.
Right. No, I'll take that because
all I know is that I learned something today. I learned that we have no way to determine who is a man and who is a woman. S.J. Thomason is 633.
Well, either way, whether it's Biden or Trump who wins the election this year, Jesus is still on the throne. He's still king.
Well, I do have, since we're going to be closing out in a minute, I do have one last question. And G-Man, maybe you can answer this or think it over for hopefully the next time we have a conversation.
Sure.
Is specifically, if you could please identify a trait for me or something that I lost by not having a male role model. And then maybe in our next talk, you could let me know and then we could expand on it.
Masculinity.
Oh, I know I have to disagree with that one. So I don't think that's.
But I'll give you some more if you want later. I'm going to say masculinity because I believe that a masculine individual is going to act a certain way. All I know is this. I have a question for you, Ethan. All right.
Sure.
I need to know the scientific differences between a man and a woman. Okay.
So I am not knowledgeable enough.
Difference. Well, I'm sorry. Hold on a minute. I just need 3 scientific facts about a man and 3 scientific facts about a woman and how we know that they are different. That's your homework. Now mine just pretty easy, but
All right, so we will be doing this again. It looks like we have a very interesting crew here. We also have my other friend who wanted to join, who was in here last time, and I could open this up again. Definitely gonna have some conversations coming up, but I wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming in here. Let me switch the screen again so you guys can see as many as possible. So we have, if you just joined right now, we have G-Man, Ken, Vekl, and Ethan, and we have 3 Christians, 2 atheists, walk into a bar, and gosh, who knows what you're going to talk about then. But it's been all good. It's been all good. And so we have some homework for next time we all meet. I certainly am open to this. I definitely was looking at, on Sundays, G-Man and I have a standing commitment pretty much at 4 o'clock. We rotate on his channel and my channel. We can even rotate on Vekl's sometimes because Vekl comes in here quite a bit. And then Ethan, I've just been getting into your channels. You're coming in here a couple times now. That's great. Ken, it's been great meeting you today.
Likewise.
And I want to somehow get links or something to any channels. If you guys have channels, that'd be Ethan. I know Ethan does actually, but Ken, I've got to find yours too. Okay. And so if you guys want to say anything as far as where people can find you.
Sure. So you can check me out on youtube.com/YFNAtheist. Next Tuesday is going to be my weekly call-in show at 6 p.m. with special guest co-host Puck. You can call in and discuss religion, ghost stories, spirits, anything. If you're looking for, the atheist experience, then this would not be the show for you, but I'd recommend giving it a shot. Wednesday, SJ will be on my channel with 4 other Christians and myself for a roundtable. And then Thursday, G-Man's best friend, Dragnot, is going to be on the channel at 6:30. I believe it's 6:30 p.m. I don't have this.
He's a stalker.
Well, Dragnot will be on, and we'll be talking next Thursday. I don't have the time in front of me. I apologize. But I encourage you to check out my channel if you're looking for a different type of atheism. And if you're specifically looking for Kenneth Leonard, the man, you can check him out on my channel as well. He's been involved in a few roundtables, a few debates. He debated Dean Meadows on the topic of does God exist, which I thought it was a really good debate.
Me and Dean didn't see eye to eye on that one, but that's okay. We're still friends.
Oh, that's where I've seen you before. I watched that.
Yeah, Dean and I, I love Dean. Dean's a great guy.
That's good.
But yeah, and I'm not super active. I don't have like a channel of my own. I'm on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mostly appear on Ethan's channel, and from time to time, other folks have asked me if I participate on theirs. So I'm hoping Christian Watkins has a new channel that I'd love to do some stuff on. But yeah.
Quick announcement on my main channel, on the G-Man channel, not GTV. On my main channel, we're going to be talking about the home and the differences between a man and a woman in their roles. That will be talked about on the G-Man channel. So Ethan, if you want to come in and you want to participate, you can.
I would love that.
Okay.
And
yeah, we're gonna be talking about that. So around 10 o'clock tonight, we'll be doing it. Ashay, you can come if you want to, Ashay, because I want to continue this conversation. Because I heard some funny stuff today.
You got to get on Twitter, G-Man. But SJ, G-Man, I do want to thank you for allowing me to come on your channel, and thank you for letting me impromptu invite Ken on as well. I think these conversations, while G-Man, you and I totally disagree, like adamantly, I think these conversations are important, and I think they need to happen. So I look forward to engaging with you more on this.
Oh, thank you, Vekl. I don't think you've said anything on this as far as where you are.
Vekl's probably taking Advil right now.
Regarding the man-woman thing.
No, where people can find you, or what you're working on.
Oh yeah, I'm nothing special here. I'm sure a lot of the trolls in the side chat would agree. But I got a small YouTube channel where I'm doing I do a little bit of apologetics talk. Lately, I've been talking a lot about getting into political discussions as well. But I'm mostly familiar with my channel with the cartoon series that I have been doing for the past 9 years now. It's called 12. It's an end times cartoon, and just very simple animation, and you can check it out whenever you want.
Excellent. Christian Watkins, that's who I was going to say. Christian, we will have you on here again. So we'll have more people in next time, either Wednesday in the afternoon before the other nighttime thing on Ethan's channel. I also want to mention, I'm going to be on the Modern Day Debate again. I was there today debating on objective morality. I'm also going to be on there debating on next Saturday, in which you guys hear the topic. Should we develop an acceptance of e-cam girls? Yes, and you can probably get what side I'm on. I'm anti-cam girling because I equate that with porn. And so I've yeah.
If I can actually just say something from you real quick, I'm going to use it for something. But I need you to say, it's time for preaching to the choir ministries. Just say it just like, it's time for preaching to the choir ministries. Yeah.
It's time for preaching to the choir ministries.
You're going to see what I'm going to do with that. Cool.
I would love in on that conversation because I would definitely have a lot to offer, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
Which one? The one on e-cam girls?
Yes, I want in on that conversation.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, well, I know it's a debate. Actually, I'm pitted up against another e-cam girl. Apparently, I mean, I shouldn't say another because I'm not an e-cam girl, obviously, but she's an e-cam girl.
I don't know. This is a camera, and we are online.
No, it's like e-cam girl / sex work. So that's not.
Well, we got to draw the line somewhere, I guess, with defining our roles in this whole thing.
Crazy. It's crazy. You guys are crazy. So I will work it out. But anyway, thank you so much. It's going to be a very busy week coming up on all of these channels. So you guys in the audience, I know you're going to have a treat ahead of you. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream.
All right. I got to jump off.
All right. Thanks for having me on. It's very, very sweet and generous of you, SJ. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Yep. Take care.